Last night, the Democratic primary in New York City, the Democrats nominated a socialist who wasn't born in this country to lead New York City, Zohran Mamdani. And I got to tell you, I looked over his policies and they quite literally make no sense. He wants free buses. He wants no police. He wants government-run grocery stores, a $30 minimum wage. And I wonder where all that money's going to come from. He says he's going to tax the rich. You know, the rich will just leave. But sure, he won because whispering sweet nothings into the ears of your voters tends to work. Well, Donald Trump has called him a communist lunatic and has gone on to rage against the Democrats and the far left. So it's all fun, right? But I got to tell you, the best thing that happened today was early in the morning when the NATO chief called Trump daddy. I'm not exaggerating. He literally made a reference to Donald Trump. He says, Daddy's got to use hard language sometimes in a reference to when Trump dropped that F-bomb. And oh boy, has that been a talking point all day. So you know what? I'm here for it. But, you know, it is what it is. In the meantime, the CIA has put out information saying definitively we've got information. The Iranian nuclear sites have been set back years. We've got reliable sources on this. And they're going to go after the individual who leaked that initial report, which they say was incomplete. So we'll get into all that, my friends. But before we do, we got a great sponsor. It is, we got Lear Gold, Lear Capital. You guys check out leartim.com if you want to get some gold and silver. And I'm a big fan, actually. I have a lot of gold and silver myself, especially considering how insane the news often is. I don't like to be overly alarmist like the world is ending. So, you know, sometimes I'm like, but I will say in terms of economic uncertainty, the political divide in this country, you know, I bought gold and silver a while back. And you know, I think it's an important hedge. But the more I dig into the numbers, let's get into it. I understand why so many experts are calling silver one of the most undervalued assets out there right now. Let's be real, silver is the future. We're talking about solar tech, electric vehicles, AI, some of the biggest technological shifts in our lifetime, and silver is essential to making all of it work. Indeed. And you've got reports about the Tesla self-driving taxis coming out now. You've got Waymo expanding. They had a crazy past couple of weeks. Right now, silver prices have jumped since 2020. Let me put it that way. About 190%. Here's the crazy part. It's still trading at what many experts are calling bargain prices. We're in a multi-year deficit. Demand for silver is outpacing supply. And now add billions of dollars flooding into AI. And you've got one direction silver demand is going. It's going up. Some analysts are warning the ongoing deficit could turn into a full-blown shortage. And if that happens, prices could skyrocket. Many of you may have heard of Robert Kiyosaki. He's calling silver the most overlooked opportunity in the market right now. He thinks it could double, maybe even triple by the end of 2025. So here's the deal. If you guys are serious, check out my friends over at Lear Capital. They got a free report called The AI Revolution, and it breaks down exactly why silver prices are primed to soar. Call 1-800-489-6450. One more time, that's 1-800-489-6450. Or just head over to leartim.com, leartim.com. Don't wait for the media to tell you when it's time to move. Check it out yourself, learn as much as you can, and then, you know, see what you can get. Also, before we get started, my friends, we've got an excellent announcement over at boonieshq.com. Our Pride Month collection is now available. You can see that we've got a new board available. It says, don't be gay. Hold on, okay? We also have be gay. Because whether you be gay or don't be gay, hey, that's up to you. We're not here to rag on anybody. And so we decided, instead of getting involved in whatever the culture war is, we'll just do both. So if you go to boonieshq.com, you can pick for yourself which board you want for Pride Month. Be gay, don't be gay, the choice was always yours. Don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we've got Matthew Faraci.
What's up, Tim?
How's it going?
I'm still laughing at that. I saw it yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, we try. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, let's see. I have a podcast on Federal Newswire called Peace and Power Israel, which is it's a inside Washington bubble podcast about the U.S.-Israel alliance and all the intricacies. And I have a company called Gideon 300 where we help freedom-driven organizations figure out how to further their mission. So kind of like the intel inside the good guys.
Well, all
I
right.
think about it that way.
Well, all right. Thanks for hanging out. Should be.
Yeah.
Brett is here.
Guys, Brett, Pop Culture Crisis, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but let's talk politics.
Tate is here as well.
That's right. Producer Tate here. Tate Brown. Yeah, excited to get into it.
And of course, Phil.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary, and that is actually related to a lot of the stories that we're going to be talking about tonight. So let's get into it.
We've got this story from the Post-Millennial. Trump slams communist lunatic Zohran Mamdani after New York City Democrat primary win, endorses AOC for VP, low IQ Jasmine Crockett for president. He says, I have an idea for the Democrats to bring them back into play. Here's the post from Trump. Oh, boy. He said, it finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zohran Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Democrat primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible. His voice is grating. He's not very smart. He's got AOC plus 3 dummies all backing him. And even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is groveling over him. Yes, this is a big moment in the history of our country. I love where this country is at, and I mean that sarcastically. Okay, so this guy, Zohran Mamdani, he beats out Cuomo. Cuomo concedes. He's expected to win. The prediction markets have him 3-1 against Eric Adams. There's arguments that there could be a coalition victory if all of the other candidates drop out and endorse Eric Adams. Yeah, it's not going to happen. This guy, I just want to stress, every morning we're talking about morning show guests. We do Zoom calls in the morning show. Timcast IRL, we book out in advance. And there was a question of should we try and book this guy and have a conversation with him? And I'm like, the challenge with that is that I have to be honest to the audience. Okay. And the moment that I say this guy is either developmentally disabled or evil, I doubt he will want to come on the show. But when you look at his website and his policies, it may as well just say, vote for me and you can have your cake and eat it too.
100%.
Literally, it's what it says. Okay. Figuratively, it's what it says. So I don't know that he'll want to come on, but I still hope he does, even though I've insulted him.
Well, he could get his free cake from the grocery stores and get a bus ride there as well.
Indeed. Yeah. His website is laughably nuts. So, I'm curious, though, is Trump going after him in this way actually going to convince people he's a lunatic, or could it actually entrench the far left into joining Mamdani?
It's interesting because you were talking about the party platform of the Democratic Socialist of America, which, by the way, that's the same group that de Blasio comes from. And it's weird because this group is actually infiltrating the Democratic Party. So the Democrats have used these guys for their get out the vote, for the protests, for the grassroots activity, and very successfully. But as a friend of mine likes to say, if you make a deal, if you partner with the devil, you're going to find out pretty soon you're the junior partner. And the Democrats are being taken over by this party.
This isn't good.
Go ahead.
No, go, please.
Anyway, so if I'm Adams, here's what I'm doing. I'm running an ad, okay? And the ad has footage of Londonistan, formerly London. And I'm showing the rape gangs, and I'm showing the Sharia law in neighborhoods, and I'm showing all that stuff. And I'm saying, New York, keep going in this direction. This is your future.
Well,
this is where you're going.
One of the things that Bernie was talking about when they interviewed him about this guy was that he ran a grassroots campaign without ads, and that what Cuomo was doing wasn't working because he was speaking to a voting demographic that just wasn't there, right? Yep. So I don't even know if running ads is really going to work, because the people who have made up their mind, they've already done it, and you're not going to reach them with that type of marketing campaign.
Well, what seems to be the most effective is going to a courthouse and fighting cops and then going on TV and then getting invited to a bunch of talk shows by having done it. And I strongly recommend no one do that. However, it appears if you are a Democrat, Trump's DOJ will not criminally charge you if you do. So bravo to the Trump administration for letting Brad Lander off with no charges, even though he fought federal agents and should go to jail for that.
I would like you to have him on so you can ask him what defunding the police has to do with queer liberation.
He wants to create an LGBTQ council. Like what? Who gets to be on that? Someone
Is it a Sharia council?
I mean, I don't know. No, but like, here's the thing. if you literally say we're going to create this is communism. This is how they do it.
Islamunism.
It's communism. What he's saying is we are going to have a governmental body with power so long as you publicly declare you are part of that ideology. So you can call it the Communist Party boardroom in the mayor's office, and then people have to go in, raise the red fist, and then say, I hereby swear allegiance to communism or whatever. Or you can do what they do and say, prove that you're a part of the movement and publicly declare you're LGBTQ, and we will give you political power. There's very little difference other than the words being used.
Well, someone posted a picture of Boris Yeltsin visiting the grocery store in America, and he's surprised they're like New Yorkers visiting Hoboken 2 years into Mamdani.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the Russians used to say it was capitalist propaganda to be able to just go to a grocery store and get whatever you
It's about to
wanted.
be New Jersey propaganda.
Hoboken, here we come. Look, this is something that well, first of all, actually, there is a serious chance that Mamdani can actually win. Like, a lot of people are kind of poo-pooing on the idea, like, oh, you know, the cooler heads will prevail, blah, blah, blah. They're going to go with Adams, or they're going to go with, what's the other guy's name that's running?
Eric Adams.
Eric Adams, and there was someone
Cuomo.
else. Eric Adams and Cuomo.
But he reportedly is out. Like,
Well,
You conceded, right?
Well,
But
no,
that's the
but
primary.
I mean,
Hold on,
but I mean,
hold on,
he was
hold on.
going to run in the general, and
yeah,
apparently, he's
but hold
not
on. The
gonna-
point that I'm trying to make is there is a real chance that those two guys split the normal person vote or the regular liberal vote, and Mamdani gets the left lane right in. You know, he's far to the left, and he actually gets to be the mayor in there. And obviously, the entire, you know, the whole internet and all of Twitter is talking about how terrible that would be for New York. So we'll see if New York actually, you know, tries to prevent that. But I mean, personally, look, they've done these experiments in San Francisco. They've done these experiments in Chicago, and there's the entire 20th century that we can go and look at and see what happens when you have this type of administration. He's just a Fabian socialist. He's not a revolutionary, apparently, because he's not looking to kick indoors or you know, get out in the streets the way that tankies are. But he's looking to implement a socialist government beyond New York. And the means that they're going to do it is they're going to vote it in.
And being revolutionary or not doesn't really matter because it's just pushing the Overton window farther down the line for New York as to what's acceptable even for left-wing politics.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I also think people are underrating Mamdani's ground game. Because, like, I mean, I went to college in New York. All of my friends who I thought were apolitical were in love with this guy. Probably couldn't name one policy of his, but his ground game, his TikTok game, that's going to be the ticket because the DSA is totally capitalized on the vacuum.
What are his pronouns, though? I mean, this is the biggest thing we.
This is interesting. He doesn't even have pronouns in his
What?
Twitter. Yeah.
He doesn't have any pronouns?
No. So
Look,
Well, it worked out for him.
he likely will get the same type of treatment that Barack Obama got. And I'm talking about Mamdani here. He's very charismatic. He's a good-looking young guy. People are going to look at him and be like, look, he represents something different, and this is going to change the circumstances of my life. And whereas that will definitely change the circumstances of their lives.
Donald Trump has the opportunity to do the funniest thing in American history.
You know, I would love it. Obviously.
Someone want to read it? Because the silence.
It says the Communist Control Act of 1954 is an American law signed by President Dwight Eisenhower on August 24th, 1954, that outlawed the Communist Party USA and criminalized membership in or support for the party or communist action organizations. It also defines evidence to be considered by a jury in determining participation in the activities, planning, actions, objectives, or purposes of such organizations. Since being signed into law, it has scarcely been invoked and was effectively ruled unconstitutional in 1973.
That last
we
sentence.
need to revisit that.
Hold on. That last sentence was added without citation, likely by an activist, because that is factually false.
Yep.
A lower court at a state level said you can't actually do this, and it was never challenged. So it is still on the books. And also, you guys, I hope you're aware, the Civil Rights Act actually has an exemption for communists. Mm-hmm. They are not considered humans.
Correctly has an exception for communists. Look,
if you believe communism, you can be discriminated against. That's actually, and that is law. That is codified law.
Yeah, because it's not immutable. You can change your stupid mind. Look, the fact of the matter is, he's only lived in the United States for 7 years.
I got to pause you.
Sure.
I think people who are developmentally disabled can't undo the damage to their minds.
Fair.
So perhaps, anyway, continue.
He's only been in the country for 7 years or something like that.
He's been a citizen for 7 years.
He's been a citizen for 7
2014,
years. How long did he? When did he move
Been
here?
here like 20 years.
Okay, so he's lived.
Yeah,
here
he was a
long,
little
right?
kid.
So he was a kid when he moved.
He's
here.
had a job for less than 3 years.
Yeah, even still,
work
look,
experience.
he is Syrian, and he doesn't hold the same ideals.
Excuse me, he was born in Uganda. That makes him Ugandan.
Was he born in Uganda?
Yes, he was.
Okay, so he's Ugandan. My apologies. He's Ugandan, but he doesn't hold the same fundamental principles that that America is founded on. As he doesn't cherish those principles. And to be honest with you, the United States has every right to exclude people that don't hold our ideas in high esteem. If you don't like America, you don't like the way that our government is created, the way that our government is organized, you're not welcome here. Get out.
Did you see what Posobiec was tweeting about today about the demographic shifts in New York? Because unfortunately, your definition I agree with, but it also seems to include the electorate in New York, because Poso was tweeting about different stats about the number of South Asians that have moved into New York, started at 100,000, I think, 20 years ago, and now it's like 1 million. In other words, the Democrats have done what they do and what the Biden administration's ultimate goal was, which is if you don't like the people that are getting elected, change the electorate.
Yeah.
And make an electorate that doesn't like America, and then this is what you get.
Well, hold on. Hold on one second. That point, I've seen people making that point about, he was elected because of immigration or whatever. He was elected by wealthy white people. So this is not about immigration. This isn't about changing the electorate or anything like that. This is about feminism.
He dominated the Asian vote, and that's a
And Hispanic.
huge contingent.
80-20.
Yeah, he's the Asian vote, which includes Indian. That's half of Queens. Like that's a pathway to.
But even still, the majority of the people that voted for, or at least what I read was the majority of people that voted for him were the liberal white people, wealthy liberal white people. It was like plus 16 or something.
the transplants, yeah.
So,
'Cause
but
your Upper East Side wealthy white people.
And so my point being, this isn't fundamentally about immigration. And look, my position on immigration is send them all home, right? So this isn't me trying to soften my perspective on immigration. I think that we should be deporting people. We aren't deporting nearly enough people, and people that watch this show all the time, they've heard me say this a bunch of times. But the fact of the matter is, this isn't about immigration. This is about feminism. This is about the effects of having a feminist-based society. We have a gynocracy.
I want to jump to the story with this from CNN. Takeaways from New York City's mayoral primary. Mamdani delivers a political earthquake. I would just like to take this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to endorse Zohran Mamdani wholeheartedly for mayor of New York. Zohran, I hope you win. You have my full support. I am excited for what you will bring to the city and the suffering the communists will get because of the work you will do. As for the rest of the people of New York, I think most people who are opposed to this largely fled. And to everybody else, maybe you should have gone out and voted, because only 993,000 people actually turned up for this primary, and you could have made a difference. I'll be fair, however. Who wants to vote for Cuomo? Mm-hmm. So your options are a giant douche and a turd sandwich. Oh, well. But I'm going to make this argument. And
Did you see, Tim, that Cuomo got a big vote, a big majority of the older population vote?
Indeed.
In a weird twist of
totally not weird at all.
Well, I'm saying
expected.
given his track record with older folks.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I had a conversation earlier, and there's a question of, should we, politically moderate to right-leaning, whatever it may be, disaffected liberals, call for Curtis Sliwa and Cuomo to drop out, endorse Eric Adams, and get a coalition victory against the communists? No, absolutely not. I am not going to endorse a moderate Democrat who favors Democrat policy, even in the slightest, for New York City. I'm going to sit back. I left New York years ago because of how screwed up the city was getting. And I think the only way we change this in this country is if people see mayors like Brandon Johnson. Okay, these young people are as dumb as a box of rocks. That's who elected this guy. It is, they call it the commie corridor, I think the New York Times calls it. We'll pull that up in a second. In Williamsburg, Greenpoint, in Bed-Stuy, Bushwick. These communist former vice employee types have no idea how government, economics, or any of this stuff works. And so when a crackpot snake oil salesman shows up and says, I'm going to make your bus free, I'm going to give you a $30 minimum wage. They all go, this sounds great. And don't wait, there's more. We're going to get rid of the police completely, replace them with social workers. The government will run your 15,000 bodegas. These people don't even understand how many bodegas there are in New York City. They are so dumb. I think the only way things will actually change in this country is if this guy shows up like Brandon Johnson, you get an approval rating at 1%, and these people start going, maybe we shouldn't vote for the communists.
I mean, I kind of want to push back because I do look at countries like South Africa and Brazil, and they do have these radical leaders come in, and people don't change their minds. They just say, we didn't do it correctly, so maybe we should do someone else.
The difference is these are isolated zones. And so if it was something like a communist president, I'd be very, very worried. But I don't live in New York City, and I don't think, considering the track record of Bloomberg and even Eric Adams, that this city has anything that it is not moving in the right direction, as evidenced by the primary win of Mamdani. The people who live in this place need to get what they ask for. And then what happens is they all flee. Now, I understand the risk there then is they come to your jurisdiction or whatever locality and they vote Democrat. But the argument I'd make is we'll cross our fingers and hope that if another 250,000 people flee Manhattan, which is what happened during COVID, they all don't go to the same area. So what ends up happening is if 10,000, if 25 groups of 10,000 end up going to different districts each, it won't overwhelm the current electorate. And so those people will be forced to live under the current Republican system.
When was the last time you can think at the state level something got so bad that it went the other way? Like at the national level, I guess you could say that Trump was the answer to 2 terms of Barack Obama, but Chicago, did not go the other direction.
Keeps going, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, like I don't ever see this inclination that they get fed up with it and then they vote in a Republican. Like you're not going to get Giuliani.
No, people don't get voted in. It's that people leave, right? So like the people that actually pay taxes, that fund all the things that a place wants, and this is what happened to California. This is what happened in multiple states. But like they just leave. They don't stay there, and so the people that can't leave, that are dependent on the state, they're stuck there, and they're the ones that get hurt the most. But this happens all the time. The tax base gets emptied out because the people that have money are like, well, this place sucks now. I'm out of here, because they voted it into the ground.
Well, yeah,
So real quick, take a look at some New York Times. They say, Mr. Mamdani's support was strongest in Western Queens and North Brooklyn, the Commie Corridor. Youthful, renter-heavy neighborhoods known for their left-leaning politics. Indeed, they're all communists. And all the lefties are coming out now clapping and cheering. And I love it. I am genuinely excited for it because the end is nigh. It's not like the mayor can come with an iron fist and just snap his fingers and make all these things happen. So there's gonna be assemblymen and there's gonna be city council and all that stuff to make these changes. Plus, they'll be obstructed a bit by the Hochul and the state government. So we'll see what actually gets done. But looking at what's going on here and what you see with the younger generation, everybody is starting making this prediction that as boomers die and millennials move into a heavier voting bloc, the Democratic Party is going to be communist. That is not a joke. That's not an insult.
Right.
Literal communist, as we're seeing now with Zohran. And you may be saying he's not a communist. He's a socialist, a distinction with no difference, whatever. However, there's also a viral tweet of his where he says, the mayor New York needs, and then he shows an image of someone from the Communist Party in India. So let's just say this guy fancies himself a communist, celebrates communists, and here he is.
Yeah, well, you see everyone like rallying around, like, we got to get Eric Adams, we got to stop this guy. But you're totally ignoring the problem, because 4 years later, you're going to be the exact same problem. There's going to be a DSA candidate, and no one's going to come save you every single time. You have to address the actual issue that's driving this movement, and people aren't taking it seriously whatsoever.
Was it, I think California tried passing a law that said that if you had lived in California last 10 years, that you owed taxes.
You still have to pay taxes. If you left.
That it follows you. Yeah.
Yeah, nice try, dude. I'd like to see California State Police show up in Georgia and be like, you owe us taxes. That's not going to happen. But that's what that's what communists do.
Yeah.
See, the issue that the communists have in the United States is that localized communism doesn't work because people can simply leave. See, in East Germany, they needed a wall to stop that from happening.
Yeah. I mean, that's common. In socialist countries, you can't leave. Like
remember-
that's regular. That's standard to be like, no, you're not allowed.
Remember,
to leave.
this guy's an Islamist, which is slightly different. Meaning, have you guys ever wondered why is it that you'll see a radical Muslim teaming up with a purple-haired transgender activist? What's the convergence there? My theory is, I think it's pretty right, that radical Islam is a political system posing as a religion. Okay. And so under that, and Dinesh D'Souza has interviewed people who have said this. And so basically the idea is, hey, we'll partner with anybody who helps us achieve our objectives. And then when it's just you and me, then we'll throw you off the building.
Yeah, that's
then
just
it
the
stays for
intersection.
Gaza. Yeah.
That's just the intersectional hierarchy in this
Right.
country, where it's used as a
Right.
means of power. I think it's funny because it could, in a lot of ways, if you had more faith in people to actually look into the policies of the people that they're voting for, it could bring to light a lot of the contradictions that come from somebody who is both Muslim and supporting LGBTQIA plus stuff. To ask, well, from what I know about the fundamentalist sect of this religion, that runs completely in contradiction to your other beliefs. How do you kind of come to terms with that? But nobody's going to ask him that question. Nobody's going to bring that up. And he wouldn't need to anyways, because as we know, there's no truth but power. It doesn't matter to them. It's all about using intersectionality, using the oppression Olympics and their identity as a cudgel against the other
The
side.
oppression, that's good.
Well, also, like, people are totally scratching their heads trying to figure out, like, what brings radical Islamists and purple-haired people together. I'm like, the one thing that unites them is they hate the United States as it was.
They hate Western civilization.
As it was
Yeah.
And they hate
before.
capitalism.
Right. So it's like the one uniting thing is that they just hate what America used to be, and they want to continue to destroy that and drive that into the ground and erase that history. So, like, that's why you get someone that became a citizen yesterday becoming mayor of the most powerful city in the world. That's what happens because his entire platform is predicated on destroying what America was.
I mean,
As is many others who are brought into this country en masse over the past 4 years.
Yeah.
That's why I said to have queer liberation, you must apparently defund the police, whatever that means, and whatever those have to do with each other.
Let me break that down for you, Brett. It can be tough. Basically, if you want to have communism, you can't have an armed faction that will stop you from having your revolution.
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
Well, in communist China, yes, it's communist China. One of the tells is that you're supposed to repeat the line of the regime from that week. In other words, if you use last week's talking points, you're in trouble. You got to use this week's talking points. So to your point, they don't. It's not. There's no principles. It doesn't have to matter.
That's why I can't keep up with whichever flag the left is running this week. It's too hard to understand.
yeah.
Did you see Freedom Tunes made a video about this last year? The American Flag Company. They become the biggest corporation in the world because they keep adding different things to the LGBT flag.
I said it's literally me and Seamus were talking about them. I think the whole thing was one big flag company's marketing ploy. They're like, we're gonna do gangbusters if we just keep adding to the flag. And then you go down down where we live. There's two houses that fight back and forth. One of them has he's got a "Don't Tread on Me" mixed with an American flag, and then the guy next door to him has the LGBTQIA plus flag from that month, plus the in this house we believe that blah 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 is real. And then their flags just keep getting bigger until eventually their whole house will just be encompassed by the flags.
Did you hear about the kids that I think this happened today that got arrested in Georgia for
Oh yeah.
defaming?
Yeah. We've got that one.
Yeah.
They tore flags up. They're going to go to jail for it.
Hate crime.
Insane.
But we will get to that. But let's jump to this from the New York Post. Shares of firms tied to New York City real estate tank over fears of Mamdani's rent freeze. The Zohran effect. Already, people are losing money and preparing their exodus. Not only that, but Gristedes grocery store owners threatens to leave New York City. Katzimatitis, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, said to disapprove of mayoral candidates' plan to open city-run grocery stores. Okay, let's just try and help walk you through this, guys. If you're a communist, leftist, or young person, please listen. I would like to give you a simple 1 + 1 = 2 here. So we've got freeze the rent. Okay, he says, jacking up rent stabilized apartments by 9% and counting. As mayor, Zohran will immediately freeze the rent for all stabilized tenants and use every available resources to build the housing New Yorkers need to bring down the rent. The number one reason working families are leaving our city is the housing crisis. The mayor has the power to change that. I will just start by saying it costs lots of money to maintain a building. If the amount of money going in through rent is less than the amount of money to maintain, say, the plumbing, the heat, the flooring, the walls, the electricity, city taxes, permits, all of that stuff, they can't rent it out. This is the problem with rent stabilization. So what we've actually seen in places like New York and LA, people who own big buildings will decide not to rent out the units because the cost of having a tenant due to wear, tear, and other issues is greater than the rent they actually bring in. Additionally, buildings need a superintendent. So there's somebody they got to pay a salary to run the building. And this is what a lot of these commies don't understand. Okay. You guys you own a house? You own property? Okay. I own a house and I'm not there. And then one day I come back in and it's a room I hadn't been in for a while. And what do I find on a ceiling? Crack. Not a crack. Stain.
Water.
Oh, ouch.
Uh-huh.
Time to call Home Depot, baby.
And then we cut open the ceiling, and what do we find? We have a big leak, and the water everywhere.
Yep.
These things happen. So you can't just these people really don't get it when they're like, put a homeless person in an empty house. It's like
That's
that house will
ridiculous idea.
house fall apart.
Yeah.
We had a debate with one of our buddies over water damage, and we were explaining that if your basement floods, you have to get it dehumidified. You got to bring in the fans.
Right.
And he was convinced it's fine. What are you talking about? That doesn't happen. And this is what these people in New York are doing. So when he says freeze the rent, what happens? The landlord says, when this person leaves, the security deposit is for like if they punched a hole in the wall or there's some reasonable damages that I can argue. But the general wear and tear is going to, you need remodeling. You need a superintendent to monitor to make sure that you're up to the laws. So freezing rent makes no sense. You freeze the rent and they'll just stop renting. So what do you got to do? He points it out. Build affordable housing. Indeed. Well, I wonder why it is that LA hasn't done that despite being called the homeless capital of the developed world. Certainly LA has the money and the taxes on the wealthy to build affordable housing. Why can't they do it? Firstly, it's called NIMBY. Nobody will allow anybody to build affordable housing.
Not in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ask yourself, well, if it's affordable housing, how do you build housing units below market cost? Meaning, if there is a man who is a laborer and he says, I am entitled to the fruits of my labor, the workers of the world unite. Okay, then he comes to you and says, the workers of the world demand $100,000 to build that unit. Well, there's nothing you can do about it, right? He's entitled to the fruits of his labor. So what happens then is you say, we need to build this at a cheap, we need to rent this out for cheaper, but we got to pay that guy more money than we got. Where's that deficit come from? Easy. Other people's money. The only problem is...
And will you stop being so realistic and practical?
I'll try.
Painful.
But when you tax,
Painful.
you're going to tax the rich, they're going to leave. And then, lastly, for the city-owned grocery stores, my favorite thing here
Oh,
is,
yes. This is great.
why is Gristedes going to leave? Okay. The government doesn't pay fees to itself. So now you've got a business with no permitting. They say there's no profit incentive. Profit just means the person who owns the bodega gets to pay his rent and take his daughter to her piano recital and pay gas for his car. Profit doesn't mean money to go on a yacht. So they're saying they're going to run profitless grocery stores, below cost goods. What will that do? Long story short, no one can compete with artificially deflated goods. You have 15,000 convenience stores in New York City. Most of them are small businesses. If you strip away 4% of their revenue per year, they go out of business. And not even. That's most of these things. They're operating on like a 3% margin. So if you strip 1% of their revenue, these people are living paycheck to paycheck. You take away 1%, what happens? The guy says, I'm just not making enough anymore. I'm going to go get a job somewhere else. Then they all start closing down. You create food deserts. And the best part, what comes after the food deserts? Phil?
Well, all of the grocery stores are closed.
So there's no grocery stores.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to go to only a small amount of government-run grocery stores.
Yeah, and then food lines. Because there's nothing there.
We call them bread lines.
Bread lines, food lines.
But there you go. Congratulations, New York. That's the path you're on.
And they could have seen this happening during COVID. I was working at an apartment complex when the rent was when people didn't have to pay rent for however long it was, and the people that owned our apartment, the apartment that I worked in, they didn't even live there. They lived in Florida. This was like their one big investment. They owned 2 apartment complexes, and they were constantly, we would be trying to get people to pay rent that they just weren't doing because they didn't have to. They weren't being forced to at that time. And there was more than a few occasions where the apartment complex almost had to be sold off because they just didn't have the ability to collect the rent from those people.
Let me read this for you. He says, as mayor, Zohran will create a network of city-owned grocery stores focused on keeping prices low, not making a profit. Without having to pay rent or property taxes, they will reduce overhead and pass on savings to shoppers. They will buy and sell at wholesale prices, centralize warehousing and distribution, and partner with local neighborhoods on products and sourcing. With New York City already spending millions of dollars to subsidize private grocery store operators, which are not even required to take SNAP and WIC, we should redirect public money to a real public option. So just to stress, he's not saying there'll be no profit motive. He's saying they're also going to create artificial deflationary competition by not requiring rent or property taxes. Good luck running any business in New York when he does this.
Nobody should be more angry than the business owners who have to constantly deal with local government trying to find any reason to put them out of business.
Like he hit on already, there's already a problem with them, like basically subsidizing these private grocery stores. And if you go to these grocery stores, it literally looks like a bomb went off in there.
Really?
And like,
Hey, you don't rag on our bodegas, man.
Well,
I used to go every day and I'd say, I want roast beef with white American cheese.
That's right.
We don't want those artificial food dyes. I don't need coal tar in my cheese. And I get on a Kaiser bun and I'd say, smash it.
Can you imagine
Put it in
like
the grill and they go,
Can you imagine
what
like
I'm talking about.
DMV employees running a grocery store? Like you're gonna drink 3-month expired milk and just like drop dead on the street. Like that's the future.
You're going to think they're trying to poison you, but really it's just negligence.
Okay, but guys, I got to go back to the earlier point. If you import people from S-hole countries, I'm quoting President Trump here, you're going to have S-hole expectations.
But this is also
Right?
something that you could point
I know
out to
it's the rich whites, but I'm saying there's other.
But that's why I'm in
There's
favor of Trump's South Sudan deportation plan. Because it's not about an ish-hole country. It's about the ranking of it's degrees of ish-hole. You know what I mean? Like the United States has some, pretty crappy areas. You know what I mean? So, but we're not crap hole nation. We'll keep it family friendly.
Right.
And then we might say when people come here from Guatemala or Honduras, many people might say that's a crap hole nation. And I say, whoa. Relative to what? So when the criminals come here and Trump is deported in the South Sudan, that's actually going to improve South Sudan. Their GDP is $300.
So it's actually compassionate conservatism.
Better than North Minneapolis.
It's redistribution of wealth.
Yeah.
So look, somebody who comes here from Guatemala, the fact that they've been to a Buffalo Wild Wings, this was a big story during the caravans in Trump's first term.
Yeah.
They were interviewed by the LA Times, and they asked one of the migrants at the caravan, "Why do you want to come to America?" And quite literally, it's a quote, "I miss Buffalo Wild Wings." So hold on. You think anybody in South Sudan knows anything about Buffalo Wild Wings? Imagine what would happen if you, Matt, went back 500 years to Europe, right? The stories you could tell, the information you'd bring, you'd say, look, I got to be honest, I could never build a computer in a million years, but I do know basic things like, how magnifying glasses can, or you can use water or like that. I know things that could be made. I know what's possible. And you could probably give information that they'd be like, we never even thought of that concept. I mean, the easiest way to explain it is zero had to be discovered. Literally, the concept of mathematical zero had to be discovered. Humans didn't know to even fathom imaginary numbers. There was a point where some dude discovered air because they just thought there was nothing there until eventually someone was like, hey, there's something there. And they figured it out. It's air. Or how about Archimedes' law of water displacement? My children know these things. So if you got a guy who comes from Honduras and he has been to Buffalo Wild Wings 75 times, you bring him to South Sudan, he's going to be like, look, I got to be honest. You get me chicken wings, you get me flour, you get me eggs, maybe a little bit of salt. I can make deep fried chicken wings, and I know what kind of sauces they had and what they tasted like. We could figure this out. You could bring Buffalo Wild Wings to South Sudan.
You know what I'd say if I could go 500 years back to Europe? I'd say, listen, guys, you're fighting the Muslim invasion. Just stop, because your great-great-great-great-grandchildren are just going to let them in. So don't fight them, because you're just going to give Europe over to these guys anyway. So,
Well, it's
right?
also funny,
Easy prediction.
Funny, like you were saying, because in Nairobi, there was a documentary that came out recently, and a lot of British youth, quote unquote British youth, that get deported from Britain, so they're Kenyan nationals, they return to Nairobi, but they set up London-style street gangs, and they've completely ran the city for like the last 5 years. And they call it like, we're roadmen and stuff, and they wear like, it's like 90 degrees out. They're wearing
This
like
is a thing?
shiesties. Oh, there's a whole documentary. I don't remember who. And then also, when I was in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, there was a fake Starbucks there because people got deported from the UK. They're like, I need a good cup of coffee. So they set up a fake Starbucks, and it's like branding that's 10 years old, but by all accounts, it looked like a Starbucks.
Hey, man.
Incredible.
This is why people invest in other countries, in all seriousness, because people, there was a guy I met a long time ago, ultra wealthy guy, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And you want to know what his business model was? He literally just took things that already existed and worked for at least a year or two in the United States. And then he went to developing nations and said, he was like, okay, what percentage of your population has a smartphone? And they're like, at this point, 60, 70% have low-cost Android phones. And then he was like, take a look at this app. Everybody's using it. It makes $10 billion a year. Let's make one for your country. And then boom, now he just made $1 million a year off of the entire country. Not a lot for a developing nation, but you do that 10 times, he made himself a lot of money. And he didn't. There's nothing really to it. The idea works. We know for a fact it does. All we have to do is make the app and the system for your country, and everyone's going to start using this, and it will boost economic activity.
So when are you starting Timcast of South Sudan? That's what
we already have it.
Oh,
right.
All right.
AI
We hired a guy in a beanie. He's been down there building it for the past 3 years.
How's his? Is he good? Does he skate too?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, they got Ugandan Skate Club. They're pretty cool.
If you want to think about something as far as like the incongruity of their belief system, is like last week we were talking about immigration. We were talking about how Trump is going to deport everyone and this country was built on immigrants. Well, now what this guy is proposing is to put a bunch of bodegas run by legal immigrants out of business, despite the fact that the week before you were talking about how everything that we're doing regarding immigrants in this country is evil. And they're proposing something that would take away much of their livelihood.
You know, there's one thing that I think that people need to, or people should kind of pay attention to. When the left says, oh, we're a nation of immigrants, that implies that every single person that comes to the United States is exactly the same. That means where they come from doesn't matter. What they believe doesn't matter. How they want to, the society that they want to engage with doesn't matter. We're a nation of immigrants. And so all immigrants are the same. Immigrant is just the same. They're all the same. And that's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely wrong. The culture that you come from matters. And if you do not endorse, and I was saying this earlier, but I think it's something that more Americans really need to vocalize and talk about when they're arguing with people, whether it be on the internet or whatever. If you don't want to be an American, if you want to come to America to change America into something else, the United States should not allow you to come to America. And that should not be even remotely controversial. Yeah. But I want
to jump to this tweet from Stephen Miller. He says the commentary about NYC Democrats nominating an anarchist socialist for mayor omits one point: how unchecked migration fundamentally remade the New York City electorate. Democrats change politics by changing voters. That's how you turn a city that defined U.S. dominance into what it is now. And we have this from Zohran Mamdani's platform, Trump Proofing NYC, which I will read. He says, Donald Trump is tearing the fabric of New York City in his second term. He has deployed ICE agents to pluck New Yorkers from their families. He has sent already high prices skyrocketing with tariffs. And he has threatened vital social services that working New Yorkers rely on every day. Zohran Mamdani will fight Trump's attempts to gouge the working class and deliver a city where everyone can afford a dignified life. He'll ensure our immigrant New Yorkers are protected by strengthening our sanctuary city apparatus, getting ICE out of all city facilities and ending any cooperation, increasing legal support, protecting all personal data. He'll make NYC an LGBTQIA sanctuary city and protect reproductive rights. He'll also protect workers and ensure our current laws are enforced by increasing the budget of DCWP and the New York City Commission on Human Rights and muscling up our law department. I'll put it this way. Imagine there is a small campsite with 10 buildings and a large fence around it. Each building has a family. They were all friends. They've lived there for 100 years. One day, a group of people break through the gate and occupy 5 of those buildings. Those people in those 5 buildings are saying, we live here now and we should stay. Well, the other half of the property, which is the original owners, nominate a guy to lead them who says, I'm going to drive these people out of our campsite. Now, just think about it simply. The people who are there, the people who came there illegally band together and say, that guy's going to try to kick us out. We must stop him. What people need to understand in terms of the perspective on this, Donald Trump is not targeting immigrants. He is targeting illegal immigrants, people who are violating the law. But outside of that even, what Zohran Mamdani is saying is, anyone who is here doesn't have to follow U.S. law. We've broken the law to come here, and we will not allow law enforcement to protect their own nation. Let me stress this again. PR is everything. The narrative being driven by Zohran Mamdani is that we are just simple families living in New York. Let me restructure that statement. Illegal immigrants who illegally entered our country are banding together to assert that they will not allow the United States to defend its own nation. That's what they're saying when they say sanctuary. Now, would you tolerate a gang breaking into your house and then arguing amongst themselves about how they're going to stop you from protecting your home and your family? That's what's happened, and that's what's happening right now. Stephen Miller makes an interesting point, but the question then is, how do you remedy it?
Thankfully, Donald Trump has shown that he is willing to call in the Marine Corps.
I don't know that Donald Trump is willing to call in the Marine Corps to start mass deporting people by the truckload. And
No, they'll just defend the ICE agents that are actually doing the deporting.
ICE so far has not been able to deport enough people.
No, they haven't been able to deport nearly enough. But that doesn't mean that we should stop, or it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try.
Well, if you want New York to resemble what it did when the U.S. attained global dominance and became the unipolar power, you have and the left always jumps to the race thing because the ill-informed don't understand ideologies, and race is easy for them to understand. I don't care. Actually, Tucker Carlson put it well. The interests of Black Americans are the same as any other American. Why would you even bring race up? The issue is that foreign-born who come to this country, whether legally or illegally, have a very different ideology to America. Hence, Zohran wants totalitarian, fascistic governance. And the people who come here say, I don't care, just give me free stuff.
And Tim, that's why when you're legal, you have to go through a citizenship process. And that citizenship process requires you to understand the Constitution, our system of government. So if you go around that, to your point,
Zohran is legal. Yeah. And he's a communist.
No, I know that. But I'm saying to your point that this is basically an illegal immigrant island. And because they came illegally, they don't have to go through that filter of understanding our system.
The idea that some may come out like he is, being a communist, but many others come here hopefully holding American values.
If you come here legally and you go through the process and then you go through the citizenship process, I mean, I don't know what the stats are, but let's just say we've been doing that for a long time and it's been working out.
And that's my point. And they start businesses and they enter the community. But he wants you to both live here, but he doesn't want you to own your business because he wants to shut down your bodega so that you can go to the food lines, go to the bread lines, right? It's also why they obfuscate the use of, why they omit the word illegal in that phrase so that you conflate the two. And most of it ends up being a losing factor for Americans anyways, because so much white guilt has been placed on this country in relation to immigration that they're not going to push back on this stuff for fear of being called racist because you believe that if you come here illegally, you have committed a crime and you should not do that.
Republicans have largely been unwilling, and conservatives in general, to do what needs to be done in this country to maintain its values, its system of governance, and provide for the next generation. Democrats have been wholly willing to do literally anything up to and including murdering people, shooting them in the streets of Portland or at the Chaz Chop in Seattle. Aaron Danielson shot and killed. The kids at the Chaz Chop shot and killed. Molotov cocktails given out. And what happens with their the legal system in place? Sweetheart deals for those who push violently their ideology. The right did nothing. They won't even engage in any kind of subterfuge or PR campaigns. They largely just stand upright and say, but we are honorable. Yeah. And the left says you can be whatever you want to be when we have the power.
That's what it kind of came up the other night when people were talking about Charlie Kirk's characterization of him as a Muslim socialist, and people are saying, "Why are you bringing up his religion? What does that have to do with any of this?" And I said, "Yes, I get it. That's a fair characterization because it's not really the point. But the thing is they're going to use their identity again as a cudgel, as a weapon, and it doesn't matter to them if you're honorable because they are going to use everything in their their power to take what you have, and they do not care if you're honorable. Honorable doesn't matter if you end up dead in a ditch.
Charlie Kirk's point, as I interpreted it, was he tweeted something like it was 24 years ago that radical Islamic terrorists destroyed 2 massive skyscrapers, killing 2,754 people. And within the span of a couple decades, the city has nominated for their mayor a foreign-born Muslim socialist. A lot of the left are going to be like, how dare you? That's so wrong. I literally don't care. The point taken is, look at the radical ideological shift over 2 decades. I don't care if he was a Japanese communist or a Buddhist who wanted to build a bunch of monks on the top of all the skyscrapers. The point is, since 9/11, the ideological makeup of New York City has flipped in a massive way that no one would have expected in 2 decades.
Yeah, and to your point, Tim, we have case studies. Again, we have Europe. So I think the UK is the best case study. Look at Londonistan. The place is the mayor's Muslim. There's all kinds of public officials that are Muslim. Look what's happening there. Rape gangs, all kinds of violence, Sharia law in the state, all kinds of stuff.
You'll go to jail if you say naughty words.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? And for the let's say indigenous people, you if you say something, all of a sudden if you say something on social media, to your point, you're going to jail. So we know this doesn't work. We're watching Britain sink into the ocean right in front of us, and that's why I agree with you, Tim, about let this happen to New York, but it's so painful to watch New York turn into London.
Well, I'll be honest. I have literally no problem with Donald Trump using the DOJ to go after. Look, if Zohran gets elected and he literally says we will defy federal law, then he should be indicted and charged with sedition.
Hell yeah.
The DOJ should go in and remove him and federalize the city if they have to. Listen, we have federal law. I don't care what the left and the liberals say. I've explained this a couple of years ago. You may as well be France arguing about the state of the American government. When these socialists, these commies, these far left people say, well, you're arguing for fascism. No, you are not part of what we are talking about. We over here are talking about the United States of America. We have laws. We have a federal government. The laws that were passed say illegal immigrants get deported. You in New York, as a system of governance, are saying you will violate American law. Well, then that's called sedition.
Right.
And we will send in the DOJ and Donald Trump to arrest you for sedition, remove you. You will lose your authority, creating a crisis where the federal government's going to have to federalize your city and have new elections. And if the next guy comes in and says, we too will violate federal law, then you say, okay, let's roll. Sedition again. But if the Republicans are unwilling to do this, then you just lose. Because the left has, if we keep playing this game of pendulum swing, what do we get? The pendulum swings to the right, and they stop and they say, slow down there, Democrats. The pendulum goes left, and they go, quick, smash all the windows out. Then it swings back to the right, and they say, stop. Basically, every time the Republicans win, it's a timeout. And every time the Democrats win, it's smashing and burning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I've said, like, with the Trump administration, no matter what they do as far as immigration goes, the birthright citizenship case with the Supreme Court is all that matters. Because that's literally whatever progress you make on immigration, it's going to all get undone if you don't get rid of birthright citizenship.
Yep.
Because it's like that the idea of birthright citizenship is it just divides the world between Americans and future Americans. And you can't operate a country like that. Like, the left plays this game where they pretend like the composition of your country is like not up for discussion. And it's like, well, if you go to Michigan and there's towns there that are entirely Islamic, like, I think that's a pretty
Dearborn.
valid, I think that's a pretty valid concern to have of what is the composition of my
people
country.
cheering death to America and rooting for Iran, right? In our own country, in Michigan, in our own country.
It's not just it's not only is it normal for the population in a democracy, in a democratic, republic we have, it's not only normal for people to say, well, this is what I prefer the makeup of my first of all, my neighborhood and community and state and country to be. But that's something that's been normal for all of human history.
Yeah.
The idea that just because now it's, 2025 and this is a totally novel idea. So maybe the past 25 years where people will openly say, no, it doesn't matter who comes to your country. You just have to let everyone in. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what they think. Doesn't matter what they believe. Doesn't matter how they want to organize their society. You just have to let them in. And if you don't, then you're an illiberal, racist, whatever they want to call it. All of that stuff is all novel, and it is totally foreign to human society.
Do you remember when Ron DeSantis? It was one of my favorite moments when DeSantis released a bunch of people onto Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, it was great.
Right?
NIMBY.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And what is it, like liberal, like American liberals or the American left are the only group with the white American liberals are the only group with an out-group bias, meaning that they do not prefer those of their own race makeup, right? So that's kind of, you take that to the extreme in this country, and it's the idea that you can't have a say or a belief that there should be some type of limit to who and what is allowed into your country, because having that discussion at all is just basically tacitly admitting to them, if you play by their rules, that you're a racist in some way, shape, or form. So people won't even have the discussion.
Yeah, well, look how white liberals idolize like the Bourdain going to a third world country and like being, I'm so enlightened that I'm here, I'm indulging in this cuisine. It's like they just absolutely hate everything about America, and they like view Lagos as this like society that we should look up to and that sort of thing. And it's like, that's what it comes down to, is they have a hatred towards, it's one thing to have an in-group preference. It's another thing to have a hatred to your group, which is just an indication of how you view yourself as an individual. And yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, I mean, that's what it comes back to with immigration. Because like, for example, in the last election, immigrants, it was 60-40 Kamala. 60% of immigrants voted for Kamala. And with the second generation, it didn't really budge. So it's like this is what frustrates me about the GOP, is they like have this hunch that one day we'll win immigrants over because we'll just win them over with free market economics. And it's like, look at Zohran. He's literally doesn't give a rip about any economics textbook that's out there. He just cares about destroying the city for the sake of destroying the city, in the same way that the Soviets would drain lakes and burn down forests just because they hated nature. So it's like, yeah, we can't go off of a hunch and hope we're going to win them over. It's like, no, we just need to be realistic. And like Matt Walsh said, maybe start tapering back the
moratorium.
Let's jump to the story from ABC News. NATO Secretary General calls Trump daddy. How you guys feel about that?
I think it's a boonies marketing opportunity.
I think it was a boonies. Daddy Trump.
According to the Hill headline later today, NATO chief clarifies Trump comments. I didn't call him daddy.
Oh, he did.
And I know, which is really weird. I feel, look,
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier.
Look at Rubio.
Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously appreciative of that. But do you hope that actually they're going to be able to defend themselves, defend Europe on their own?
Well, it was a terrible question, but I'm glad she asked it because, look, it's a stupid question to ask Trump. Do you view the NATO countries as children? No, he doesn't. He views them as nations and of varying size and influence that he's negotiating with. He got them all to pay their fair share, the 5%, and he got Iran and Israel to stop bombing each other. And so the NATO chief said, Daddy sometimes has to use strong language. And then everyone laughed, and they were like, did he just call him daddy? And now he's trying to deny it because, it's kind of gay.
This is the zestiest foreign visit in recent memory.
It's worth noting that like there's a lot of things that Democrats and Biden and previous administrations had said, oh, these things we can't do. You can't do this. You can't do that. Whether or not they actually tried, I don't know. But Donald Trump has made it perfectly clear that you can just do things as the president. The president has immense power. The president has immense influence. And when he says, we're going to do this, and everyone gets all up in arms, you give it a week, and it turns out, oh, he actually did. Everybody that was freaking out kind of calmed down. I honestly think that he's going to get most of NATO up to 5%. I can't wait to hopefully there is video of when Trump goes to Spain and actually does the argument with them and see how they respond. Because to be honest with you, if they're not going to spend the 2%, never mind the 5%, but the 2%, they shouldn't be in NATO. And especially if they're going to specifically say, we're going to ignore this. Okay, well, you're not in NATO anymore.
Yeah.
But the truth is, maybe was like a Freudian slip. The truth is, he is daddy, in the sense that Trump is the dad of the world, right? He's saying, now you guys stop that. You guys stop fighting each other. You guys behave yourselves. Hey. And he is the adult who is trying to make the world behave. So even though they said it jokingly, I buy it.
He needs to get some spankings out.
Look,
yeah, that's right.
There's legitimacy to that argument.
I'm going to tell Trump what to do, and he needs to listen to me. Trump, when you go to Spain...
Careful when you're talking to your dad.
No, he's going to hear me out. When you go to Spain, make sure you get Iberian pork. Oh. It is the best in the world. You guys ever have it?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Southern Spain pork is amazing. Wow.
I'm gonna have to take a rain check on the pork.
Oh,
little theological problem.
there you go. Well, you get a pass.
I get a pass.
But they do have good. They do have good vinaigrette. I went to Malaga, and they had it was like a reception for a news event, and they brought out all this Iberian pork, and it is they say it's like filet mignon. It's like the Wagyu of pig, you know.
It's daddy's pork.
Daddy's pork. Trump, he's probably had it before. Who am I talking? You know, Trump's probably. I have a funny story. I was telling my buddy. There's like this like, I guess I don't know what you'd call it. It's one of those things where you know something that most people don't know, and then you ask them the question. I don't know if it's not a riddle, but I asked my buddy, have you ever had wasabi? And it's because the wasabi you get at a sushi restaurant is actually just horseradish paste mashed into a ball, and real wasabi is in Japan, and they don't export it. And so it's one of those trick questions. Hey, you ever have wasabi? And they go, yes. No, you didn't, because actually it's only in Japan. You've never really had it.
Everybody hates that guy, though. The guy who asks the question that they know you're going to give the wrong answer
Agreed.
to.
I have had the real wasabi.
But I asked my buddy, thinking I was going to get him, and I was like, you ever have wasabi? And he goes, yep. And I was like, no, you didn't, and he goes, actually, I have. I was in Japan, and they brought it to my table, and they shaved it off in front of me, and I was like, oh.
He's like, you're not getting me on
You're
this
not
one.
getting me on this one.
See, I think the guy probably, like, after he said daddy, probably like, why didn't I just say father? It would have been like, I got zesty for a minute. I should have just said father. It would have hit just as hard.
Let me pull the clip up, though, so you can actually hear him.
I want to see Tim Pool, Who's Your Daddy t-shirts. That's what I want to see.
Well, I'm wondering, like, in these negotiation rooms, if they're like, oh, daddy's angry.
Now they are.
Now they are.
I mean, Zelensky wore a suit, so clearly he knows daddy's home.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep. Here you go. Listen to this.
Even though you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easier to stop them.
And then daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
Yeah, it's a strong language. Every once in a while you have to use a certain word.
His accent made it that much gayer.
See, I think there's like instant regret as soon as he said. He's like, oh.
I'm gonna go on the pride flag, aren't I?
And then this reporter makes it worse because it was obvious. Trump said the school kids are fighting, and he was saying, and then daddy has to come in, and he meant figuratively, right? But the problem was Trump was referring to himself. In Israel and Iran are acting like school children. He's got to get them to stop. So when he thought he was going to play into that by calling him daddy, he called Trump daddy. Clearly he regrets it. But then this reporter comes in and says, he called you daddy. Do you feel like NATO are your children? She set him up. So it was a dumb question, but it set the narrative on Trump being called daddy. And then Trump said, what did he say? I want to hear him say it again.
Him hard, okay? No?
He
did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
You're my daddy.
I think this is would this be a good tip for Alad next time he gets a Trump question off? He'd be like, daddy, what do you think of this?
Alad, you need to do that. That would be hilarious.
This current political environment is both chaotic but entertaining.
It is.
It's only entertaining because he can take something like that and turn it into that soundbite at the end.
Yeah.
That's why it's funny.
You got communists trying to take over cities. You got there's a protest today, like 2 hours ago in D.C. They stormed the Capitol. I'm not kidding. And they got arrested. It's just it's wild. Prices are through the roof on so many things, and may you live in interesting times.
Hey, Tim, you got to give him credit on the protest because I was looking it up. and it was an anti-Medicare. No, yeah, it's about the Medicare Medicaid portion in the big beautiful bill. And I've got data from Eyes Over, which is a social listening software that shows that scoring for Democrats, accusing the bill, what they're doing.
It's not working.
The Republicans are. So that's what they think, okay, well, this is something we got, so let's stage a protest and see if we can make a news story.
It's a bunch of like old people raiding the Capitol, like they're walking.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is like
tennis balls everywhere.
They're really desperate to take anything they can and frame it the right way and try to get some points.
If they really want to get young people to protest, they should just say that the bill is Israel. That's it. There you go.
$1 trillion to Israel.
Not to Israel. They'll literally be like, do you know what Israel is? Be like, I've heard of it. It's that bill. That bill is Israel. Like, they don't even know if it's a country or not. They don't. I think one of the funniest things I heard was that, I can't remember who said it. They said, these protesters don't know from which river to which sea.
Yeah.
It's a slogan.
Yeah.
They just heard it on college campus and they decided to say it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of came up when, like, a long time ago when we were discussing that phrase, and I asked, how many people do you think at that protest even know what that means, the derivation of it? And because that's in my mind, I imagine just a bunch of kids who don't actually pay attention to what's going on, just want to be part of something, and don't have any real knowledge about what they are fighting against.
I mean, that's all of it. Like, I actually saw somebody on Instagram unironically use the word Wimixen.
Oh, God.
Womxn.
I like it when they use folks with an X.
Wimixen is the trans-friendly word for women. Because you put the X in the word, and that means trans, I guess. So Wimixen means women and trans women.
You're like mixing, is the mix, like you're mixing women?
No,
with
no,
trans?
Womxn.
It takes the man out.
Yeah. Wimixen.
Or you used to use chest feeders. They use that one sometimes.
They don't pronounce it Wimixen, they pronounce it woman. But you read it and you're like, Womixen?
I like your way of saying it better, Tim.
Well, how am I supposed to describe what it is unless I actually if I said I saw someone unironically put the word woman in their profile, people would be like, "What do you mean?" No.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't explain anything.
They did the same thing with Latinx because they didn't want to use the derivation between Latina and Latino.
Oh, I've been using it pretty heavily because I want Scheinbaum to calm down there. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep reiterating it over and over again.
Latinx.
Yeah.
Latinx. That's my favorite.
Latinx. It reminds me of that what Winx Club. That's that fairy kids show with the fairies.
Don't know.
I know what it is. I've never seen it.
Me neither.
The NATO secretary loves that show.
That's the correlation. Like when you call someone Latinx, I'm imagining like, you know, like a migrant day laborer with fairy wings flying around.
There's a show to be made there somehow.
Latinx Club.
Like, there's Home Depots around here. We could go film it ourselves.
They're illegal immigrant day laborer fairies that are at Home Depot, and they help you finish the work at your home.
Like, and it gets done really fast because they use magic.
Their wand is just a tape measure.
Starring Gavin Newsom.
I guess. All right. Let's get to it, guys. We have the story from the Post Millennial. Rep. LaMonica McIver pleads not guilty to assault charges after May altercation outside Delaney Hall, which is kind of crazy because there's video of her punching a cop. So I don't know how you plead not guilty to that.
That's the thing. It's like, girl, they got you on video, like in 4K.
Because she was fighting fascism.
Yeah, that's right. That wasn't a cop. That was fascism.
It was a fascist.
Yeah, she wasn't hitting a police officer. She wasn't hitting an agent of the law, an agent of the government. She was hitting fascism because everything is fascism.
Let me see if, wait. Is this? Oh, wait, this is something else. I'm just trying to find the story.
This is all about political. At the end of the day, this is all about political intimidation. I don't know. I thought it was all about physical intimidation. Failed physical intimidation.
The new trend is to just go get arrested, like lawfully arrested.
All right, here's the video. It's from May 9th. I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to literally watch the footage of her punching a cop.
Yep.
Is there sound on this one? No sound? Okay. So here you can see her in the red, and she's fighting, shoving, and it gets better. There's her shoving. You can see she's shoving him.
Mm-hmm.
So first, that's just regular old assault. But wait, there's more. There's her. You see her doing a closed fist pound. We don't know on who, though. Boom. And then there's the closed fist pound. And now here's the closed fist punch of the cop. She punches him in the back of the shoulder. Oh, they blur it out. Or I'm sorry, the YouTube's blocking it. So check it out. Boom. You see that?
Oh, there you go.
Boom. Punches. This is a cop. She punched him in the back. How are you going to plead not guilty when you're on camera doing it? Does she
Because
not?
she's going to rely on the jury to find her not guilty, or she's going to rely on
they just won't they won't
prosecution.
prosecute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Democrat, just do whatever you want all the time.
It's different.
Why didn't the DOJ arrest Brad Lander?
Pardon me?
Why didn't the DOJ arrest Brad Lander?
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, he got arrested. Why wasn't he charged? Why did Trump let him go? I'm just so sick of all of this. Okay, I'm sick of all of it. This is why I've never liked Republicans. They're a bunch of turtles. They're walking around. They're funny to look at, but they don't do much. And a 3-foot tall fence stops them from doing anything. Brad Lander goes to an immigration court, links arms the guy who they are to deport, and starts screaming at the cops. They can't do this. They have no authority to arrest or detain, and literally fights with the cops, and they don't charge him. And then he goes on shows like he went on Charlemagne, and he says he actually got called out for doing a stunt. I'm just going to say this: if the Trump DOJ will not charge these guys, they're going to all keep doing it.
Yeah,
right.
Bowman pulled a fire alarm to obstruct an official proceeding. Nothing.
That's why she's doing this, because I think she's just looking around and betting that she can do the same thing everybody else is doing and get away with it.
They know that they can, if they can't stop you by calling you racist, they can stop you by calling you a fascist. That's why they do this, because they know that they're afraid of being called authoritarian.
I guess. I think it's just that Republicans have always been weak and unwilling to do the difficult things to win power. Partially because they have honor, which I respect, but partially because they're also scared.
You know has anyone ever heard the story about like, oh, if you're a conservative and you're walking through a field and there's a closed fence or closed gate there, you'll leave it because someone closed it for a reason. But if you're a liberal, you'd go to the gate and open it up. Has anyone ever heard that kind of stuff?
I've never heard
No.
of it. The idea that it's not a gate that you're trying to get somewhere, you'll just open it to open it?
Well, yeah, because it's something to do with the impulse that people that are conservative have versus the impulse that people that are progressive or on the right or on the left have. And I totally lost where I was going with this. I don't know why I brought it up.
You want people to open random gates?
I hope they do open random gates. No, but it's something about like things are if you see a gate and it's closed, the conservative will be like, well, someone closed it for a reason.
Like how sometimes cats get mad that doors are closed and will put their arms under it and start yelling.
Open it.
Our cat's just like, so we have in our apartment, we have one cat that stays in this half of the apartment, the other two over here, and they just go back and forth of just knocking on the door all night long.
Cats don't like doors being closed.
Hate the doors being closed.
They don't like things sitting on the top of a table either. They just knock it right off.
They're correct. Things shouldn't be on the table. What are you doing? They should be on the floor.
The thing that worries me the most about this story is we've been talking about societal meltdown, is if politicians are doing this, what message does this send to their supporters? Like if these are the people we're electing to represent us and they're supposed to be an example and they're shoving cops, what are we telling the average American? It's a horrible precedent.
I thought they were fascist. I thought they
were telling the average American that January 6th wasn't actually a problem.
Yeah.
Right. Well, right. Yeah. Right. Well, you know what they say. If the left didn't have double standards, they've had no standards whatsoever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the one you were talking about that was arrested but not charged?
Brad Lander.
You said that Charlemagne
called him out like you got like him and Jose Padilla were doing these stunts.
Yeah. He does like he gets it right every so often.
He's Jose now.
Charlemagne gets it right every so often. At the very least, calls them out when they do this type.
I think he's just a very simple man.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it.
I don't know if it's that like these liberals didn't go to high school, but I think it was J.D. Vance who said Jose, right?
Yeah.
When he accidentally calls you Jose, and then you get mad about it, that's when it becomes your nickname. If he laughed and said, "Call me Jose, buddy," whatever makes you smile, nobody would have cared.
Nobody would care.
The worst thing you can do is hate a nickname. It's going to stick forever. Like if you want a nickname to stick, pretend to hate it.
I literally forgot Elizabeth.
Oh,
Warren's
they're calling
real
me
name.
Axel. Dang.
Yeah, I forgot what Warren's real Elizabeth Warren.
Who's that?
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Pocahontas?
yeah.
Oh, Pocahontas.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah. That's Daddy's nickname for
I
her.
was sitting there. I was like, oh, what's her?
I like
actual
this
name?
daddy thing. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with it.
Trump loves it.
Well, there's like some video going around of a guy in Michigan saying we should refer, for the purpose of the debate, Trump should be referred to as daddy. And now all the liberals are like, see, it's a cult.
Oh, God.
Yep.
It's exhausting.
Joe Biden on the debate stage, like, this daddy guy is a big problem.
I'm just imagining like a gate in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I think it was because like it had something to do with my thought process it had something to do with the fact that the left, the means don't matter to them. They just want the result, and I'm not sure how I can.
I mean, that's actually true for the most part.
They don't.
Which is like when I was trying to explain to someone why they lose is that they do not care to. It doesn't matter if they lie. It doesn't matter if they cheat. It doesn't matter if they steal. The only thing that matters is that they get the end result they want, and that there is no truth but power, and that the ends always justify the means. Because, as you always say, the only thing that matters is the revolution.
Yeah, it's the issue.
Just remember, guys, daddy is a term of endearment.
Yes.
Unless daddy makes you say it.
Yeah.
You'll be in Spain, like, they call me Padre. They call me.
But I mean, look, it's clear that everyone knows that the left doesn't care about the law or anything. You can see it every single night in Portland and Seattle lately, just, rioting and being angry at Donald Trump because they're actually mad at their dad, and that's what Donald Trump is.
No, that's right, because they're mad at somebody saying there are standards for behavior. There's a right and wrong. There's morality. There's good and bad. There's, again, we're talking about Western civilization here. And what's amazing to me is I'm hearing Tim, I'm hearing you break down earlier all the stuff going on in New York. And I'm just thinking to myself, how on earth, because I've got the gray hair to prove I've been around a little bit longer. And I'm sitting here going, how is it that Tim has to explain this? That's the most troubling part of, like, how is it that Tim has to break this down and educate people that this is a bad thing? Why is this even, that's the craziest part to me.
Well, I think you
had to say that.
Most people are focused on their lives.
Yeah.
It's electrician's got to hire a guy to fix his copying machine, but he can tell you how to put electricity and electrical systems in your building. And so for the average person, why do they watch the shows? Because, well, they're at work all day, whether they're a car salesman or they work in a steel fabrication plant or something.
Yeah.
And they get news in bits and pieces. And so you come home, you put on Timcast IRL, and I, like any other service provider, will be like, hey, all day I was reading the news while you were working. Here's what I've read about.
But also, Tim, I think it's because it makes a point that communism is so, like, if you think about marketing, communism rebrands and repackages itself constantly. Oh, you don't like this? It's this. You don't like this? It's this. And so you, in that case, had to remind people, hey, guys, it's the same stuff, different day. This is what it is. It's the same thing as the, Soviet Union, where people were waiting in line to get into the grocery stores. Same thing, different packaging.
That's why it's always the revolution. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. They always package it. The point isn't whatever they're talking about. The point is, how can we destabilize the existing status quo and institute a communist utopia?
Using the base human instinct of jealousy.
Using whatever means they can.
No, but it's always the same thing. They have what you don't have, and you deserve to have what they have. That's what it is.
It's totally not always the same thing, because sometimes they use tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying it's the same argument, which is you deserve more. You deserve more.
Yeah.
And they're stealing from you.
This is the exact reason why I said that why I said at the beginning of the show, look, this is a lot of this is based on feminist, feminist ideology, because the first arguments made in that was like, hey, your man is holding you down. Your husband doesn't let you do this. And you can say, look, there's some validity to it. Women couldn't own property, or women couldn't own have bank accounts or whatever. So fine, fair enough. But the arguments that were made were always based on oppression. Your husband, or men generally, are holding you down. They're oppressing you, and then it just goes on to the next group that you can convince is being oppressed, so that way they get up.
Have you heard Dennis Prager talk about the difference between the biblical idea between justice and compassion?
No.
Really brilliant. He talks about the fact that, like, justice has to be applied to all of us, because that's the only way we have a society, and compassion can be applied personally. But if you mix it up and you make and you make compassion the societal value, and you take justice away, everybody gets screwed.
Yeah.
Right?
And this is happening, like what's happening right now, what you're talking about have and have nots. If you look at what's going on in Venice with the Bezos wedding, there's people protesting Jeff Bezos getting married there.
How insane.
And the best part is then there's shop owners who are like, no, we want you here because you're going to frequent our stores. You're going to spend money here. We are a tourist town. But those aren't the people that are protesting.
Right.
It's young people with no job and no skin in the game who are out there saying,
in the game.
yeah, who are saying, get out of here, Jeff. Meanwhile, everyone who runs a business there's like, I want the billionaire to come into my store. He's got disposable income. We want them here. And that might be the greatest example of how ridiculous it's gotten when a tourist town is like, we don't want rich tourists here.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's also going to.
Well, I think a component of the fourth turning is when people don't know how they have generated the wealth that they have. And so you end up with a bunch of white liberals voting for communists. The meme, as I mentioned yesterday, is hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make white liberal women. And white liberal women make hard times.
And somehow you get a grocer who's voting for government-run food stores.
Yep.
Insane.
No, I'm pretty sure most of the grocers are probably voting against it.
I hope so.
But it is interesting when I see these videos out of California where people are ransacking CVS. And the reason why this is largely happening is because of corporatization. Obviously, there's communism and things like this. But what I mean is when you go into a mom and pop shop and try and steal from them, well, historically, when everything was a small business, you would just die. Someone came in and tried ransacking from your stuff, you'd get shot. These days, there is still the problem of the communism in government, the expansion, but most of these lootings are happening at big chain stores where the people who work there are like, I don't care. And then even people in our own chat will post stuff saying, don't risk your life for some corporation that makes billions of dollars. Why bother? So there's kind of a double-edged sword in this, or it's a two-pronged attack. If we were watching these gangs loot and raid small businesses, people would be saying something completely different.
Yeah, there would be an element of shame to looting a small business that there isn't there. It's like, again, the ends justify the means, and if you have to loot a big box store to get justice, then I guess that's what you have to do.
Yeah, like Tim was hitting on, is that's kind of the problem, is every time these riots break out and they're destroying a CVS, people would be like, you're destroying your own community, right? How ironic. And it's like, if a Panda Express represents my community, then it's not really a community I care about.
Hey, whoa, Panda is amazing.
Sorry, Long John Silver's.
Are you going to trash Orange Chicken on this show live?
Listen,
very dangerous.
Getting a little overpriced.
I'm okay with
Portion
the Long
sizes are going
John's.
down.
I'm okay with the Long John Silver.
If they touch an Arby's, I'm going to form a unit myself. Yeah.
Don't touch Chick-fil-A. That's there you go.
The thing is it's not that it's a corporation like a CVS. It's the fact that there's going to be a lot of people who live in that neighborhood who don't have cars, who don't have access to another store. Sure, it's a chain with billionaire bosses, I'm sure, but it represents the goods that the people in that community don't have the ability to walk to get elsewhere.
I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm convinced by this. In 2020, they were like, we've talked about the people that were putting up the signs in their windows saying, I'm a small business, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Please don't hurt me. They still smash their stuff. They don't care. Once the group of, whether it be looters or whatever you want to call them, rioters, once they get started, once they get going, they're not going to stop because, wait, we got to be nice to this guy.
So are the government-run bodegas in NYC going to have all the goods behind glass? Like, I was in Russia.
They're going to get looted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, loot city. But I mean, I was in Russia when at the end of the Soviet Union, but they still had the communist grocery stores, and you had to point to what, like, you couldn't grab this coconut water. You had to tell the lady behind the counter, I'd like 2 of those coconut waters.
That's how Walgreens is with deodorant.
That's how it is in a lot of neighborhoods in Chicago.
Yeah.
Imagine
the poorer the neighborhood, the more likely it is you're going to walk into a KFC where it's literally just a little box with bulletproof plexiglass.
Yep.
The craziest thing is
gas stations are like that too.
Yep. I went to a Popeyes, and to get the food, there is this it was like a 4-inch thick.
You sure that's food, Tim?
KFC?
No,
I'm not
Popeyes.
Popeyes. Sorry, Popeyes.
Okay.
So it was all just big thick glass, like bulletproof plexiglass or something, and there was seating, and you walk up to the counter. You'd order the food, and it was like, to give the money, they slide a thing left and right. So it's a box. They slide it to the right, you put the money in. They slide it to the left, they can take the money out. So there was no actual way to reach in any way. And then to give you your food, there was a wheel where they would put the food in it and then start to spin it around. And there was no actual way to put your arm through.
Where
the
was
wheel.
this?
Chicago.
Crazy.
Yeah, because in Chicago, people shoot you in the face.
Yeah. Well, that's how the whole country's become. Like, you go to CVS now and you want to buy mouthwash, you got to like get on your knees and beg an employee.
Oh, wait, check this out. Well, in Chicago now, they're doing Walgreens in certain areas where there's no products at all. You walk in and there's a touch screen and you touch the items you want, and then you pay for it, then they bring it out to you and you can leave.
Tesla robot brings it out to you.
But how am I supposed to get impulse items, man?
Yeah.
But here's what I'm thinking. New York's going to be awesome. Check it out. Government-run grocery stores, no cops. He wants to defund the police. So people are going to run in and just start taking stuff, and the guy working there is going to be like, you think I care? Government runs this store.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to leave it, and they're going to be like, you going to call the cops? No.
This is why John Adams said after the Constitution was signed, he said that, and this is the thing we face as a country, that America, I'm grossly paraphrasing here, but he basically said, this Constitution or this system's only going to work with a just and moral people. In other words, we've created this system that's going to work with responsible citizens who have a strong moral code. And if you don't, you can pass all the laws you want, and you're going to end up with the Popeyes situation.
He said religious and moral people.
Yeah. Oh, see, I didn't get it totally right.
And then he said for any others, it's fully inadequate. Yeah, and then people like hand wave it away. They're like, no, they were like Reddit atheists. It's like, well,
no, I don't think so.
They tip your fedora after you sign the Constitution.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm giving you an updo. That was a
well,
good line.
because I think about this because, I live between Israel and here, and I noticed that like in our neighborhood where we live, we have like it's the opposite of what Tim just described. We have a market, they call it a marcolet there, and it's in a tent, and they don't lock it. And when it closes on Shabbat, like they don't lock it.
Yeah.
And because nobody steals from it, because everybody in the neighborhood is operating on this moral code where guess what? One of the commandments says, thou shalt not steal. Yeah. So nobody steals. So the owners are not worried about you taking some of their fruit, so they leave it unlocked.
That's around here. They have the honesty boxes with chicken.
Right.
Eggs, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few of them around
here. Did that in New York, people would be like, oh, free eggs.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, free eggs in New York.
We do have one more story to get to, which we should get to. We have this one from the New York Post. Act Blue officials must face Congress as House DOJ probe widespread fraud on Democrat fundraising platform. This news has actually been circulating quite a bit. There was a story earlier that the people running Act Blue were jumping ship. They were running out of money, and nobody wanted to be left holding that empty bag. Now they're getting probed for widespread fraud, which has been uncovered by the likes of James O'Keefe as well as several others, where individuals who are like 70 years old were said to have made hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations by donating 50 times per day, which is literally not possible. And now we know that it happened. The question is who was doing it and why, and did they know about it? And the reports we already got was that they likely knew about it and just decided to do nothing and actually reduced their security. So if Act Blue goes out, will there be a Democratic Party?
God, I hope not.
Well, they're the oldest political party in the world.
There'll be a communist party.
I think the Democratic Party might disband. Like it will break, and then like the Democratic Republicans of yore, the Democratic Party will become something else, and that will be the official end of the party.
Go check out all the houses, like all the Zillow locations for Loudoun County. It's about to be empty over there.
There's rumors that there's already a lot of real estate on the market. I haven't checked closely.
Well, I think if Act Blue goes out, I think a lot of these super PACs will smell blood in the water, and they realize like, oh, we can just mold the DNC however we'd like it. Just be the biggest fish in the pond.
Yeah, this is something that we've been talking about. That there is a civil war going on in the Democrat Party right now, and if they go with the very the socialists.
Which they will, because, again, I don't know how you stop that.
Well, I don't know.
Right?
Well, the reason I say if they do is because you're not going to have billionaires giving money to communists. That's not going to happen.
I think you'd be surprised. I think there's a lot of wealthy guys out there that have a screw loose.
No, I don't think that you'll see a lot of billionaires. You will see wealthy people, like people that are making $200-300K. a year that'll make donations. They're not going to do. You're not going to get the big PAC money. And I do think that billionaires matters. Look at what Marian Adelson did for Donald Trump, right? Like she gave him a boatload of money, and especially nowadays when at least a presidential election. Like all the Democrats that have run in the past at least 15 years, they all spent $1 billion on their campaigns. Barack Obama spent $1 billion. Hillary Clinton spent $1 billion. Even Kamala Harris spent $1 billion. She lost. So people, it doesn't matter if you win or not. So you need those big dollars. And if you have a platform that's things like, well, we're going to take the property. Yeah. Billionaires are a policy mistake and we're going to expropriate their property and stuff. You're not going to get the billionaires giving them money. Now, I'm not saying that the regular Democrats are going to win because of the billionaires, but the progressives that want to take your stuff, essentially that are like, oh, we're just going to tax the rich to pay for all the stuff that we want to pay for, which everybody that looks at any kind of economic models knows that doesn't work. They're going to go there. Those people are still going to vote for those things. But the billionaires are going to be like, well, I guess we're going to go to the Republicans.
Well, let me ask you guys this. So, when I was a kid, you had different brands of Democrats. You had blue dog Democrats, yellow dog Democrats, which all went, I guess, Republican. Now you've got the communists, the DSA, like we were talking about, trying to take over. So what are the Hakeem Jeffries, I'm just trying to think, Chuck Schumer, Pocahontas, what are they actually, Bernie's as part of that DSA crowd.
Yeah.
So this is my question I've been asking. What are the actual, let's call them old school Democrats? What do they actually stand for anymore?
Doesn't matter. Think of how old they are. They're on their way out. Nancy Pelosi, on the way out. Chuck Schumer, on the way out.
Are you talking about
Nadler, on the way out.
Are you talking about the politicians or the voting bloc?
I'm talking about the politicians, meaning like Chuck Schumer, for example, who I love when Trump said he's become a Palestinian. That has got to be one of the most underappreciated comedic lines since he's become president. Chuck Schumer is as establishment Democrat as it comes, and he is congratulating this whack job in New York mayorate. So, what do they have any? I'm talking about the old school Democrat leaders, Nancy Pelosi, right? She and AOC have been at odds, in fight. You can read that. What is there anything left there? Is there any there?
Well, if you look at the DSA, there's a representative, Richie Torres, and he's out of the Bronx.
Yeah, he's pretty solid on some things.
Yeah, but the DSA, that's public enemy number one. That's how MAGA views a Dan Crenshaw. That's how they view Richie Torres, is we need to stamp this guy out because he's young enough to last for a few decades. And so it's no, they're just going to absolutely destroy anybody that.
Or Fetterman, the way they hate Fetterman so much.
Yeah, well,
because to me, Fetterman is an old school Democrat. He's the kind of Democrat from, he's a Ted Kennedy Democrat. Huh?
A union Democrat.
Yeah, old school union Democrat, but he's a fossil. In other words, where are the Democrats that agree with him?
Well, that's why everyone's for 2028, they're projecting maybe a Josh Shapiro or someone. I'm there's no appetite in the base for a moderate right now. I mean, it's literally 2016 RNC where they're throwing all these names out, and it's we don't want to moderate. We want to take the country back. And so the Democrats view that the same way. Is there's not really an appetite in the Democrat base right now for a moderate. They want to go hard. They're if they're saying Trump's a fascist and they genuinely believe that, they're going to throw out all the stops and they're going to get the craziest people they possibly can.
Socialists definitely believe that Trump is fascist because they believe anyone that isn't a socialist is a fascist.
Yeah. So do you think a base that thinks Trump's a fascist is going to nominate Stephen A. Smith or Josh Shapiro?
I'm with you on Stephen A. Smith, though.
I'm a big Stephen A. believer.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah. I'm going along on Stephen A.
The debates would be fantastic.
They're both one step away from a communist.
Listen, the older Democrats are on their way out, and the millennial and younger are communists. So,
I mean, that's why
make your bets now. I mean, well, that's not the right question. The right question is, what do I invest in right now that I can profit on, or what do I short?
You start
like the New York housing market.
Short Kroger. That's
the whole of
you start investing in the construction companies that pick up after the cities are burned down. That's what you do.
Invest in waste
management. The first thing you should have done is look up whoever rebuilds LA every time something goes wrong, and then be like, oh crap.
Yeah, that's the mob's been playing the long game with the sanitation. They've known this is coming.
Or you short supermarkets. In New York or Target. You know
how they have that congressional stock index where you follow the congressional trades? You need your own Timcast stock index.
Oh, we've talked about
Today
this quite
I'm
a bit.
recommending.
No, we don't recommend it, but we've talked quite a bit on this show about how tons of the stuff that we talk about, because we're talking about daily news, has led to very obvious predictions on investments. Like we literally did a segment talking about Quiver Quantitative calling out Nancy Pelosi's NVIDIA purchase. Yeah. And then it's like 3 months later, she's up 1,000%. And we're like, we were literally telling the world she was doing this and was going to make money, and we didn't buy it.
Invest in NVIDIA and Tempest AI and...
Yeah, there's an app. I'm not going to.
And Palantir.
I'm not going to plug it, but there's an app that matches congressional stock trades, and I bought the Pelosi one 6 months ago, and I'm up 33%.
Yep, I did it like right after you told me about it.
Yeah.
It's up like.
Sorry, I'm going to need that app.
Oh, it's monster. I'll tell you after the show.
Yeah, we need
There's
to
also
make
the
a
inverse
mutual
Jim
fund.
Cramer.
Inverse
Yes.
Kramer crush.
The Timcast Mutual Fund.
There's inverse Jim Cramer. Yeah, they got everything, and it's
What I do is I treat stock investment the way I do horse racing. I just put money in the things with the silliest names.
works with crypto. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I'm like, ooh, that's a funny name. What does that mean?
Toilet coin, fart coin.
The first thing I thought of
Addy coin.
The first thing I thought of when all this stuff about Palantir comes out, I'm like, people should... Like, are you telling me that nobody's going and investing in this right now?
Yeah, they're gonna build like.
I'm telling you,
apparatus. Yeah.
4 years ago, Ian bursts into my room. My old we used to have 2 studios for my morning show and IRL, and one day like I hear a knock and Ian opens the door. It's like, dude, you got to buy Palantir right now. And I was like, I don't know, man. That company is like big data stuff. He's like, it's trading at like $13. Just buy as much as you can. What are they at now? Like.
The Ian index would be the most esoteric
like
stock portfolio ever.
Tim, the question is, did you take that advice?
No, I didn't.
Shucks.
Ian tracker, we need it.
It's at 143.
Good gracious.
I did eventually buy some. Like I bought some a few months ago, because I was just like, I don't know. I keep hearing that name, so I'll just buy into it, I guess.
Or it's America. It's just BlackRock and
go with the classics.
It's Lockheed Martin.
Yeah.
I like how you put BlackRock in class. It's like,
is there an American
classic
classic?
BlackRock.
Wait. Is there a way we can make a communist index? Like,
Just inverse communist index.
not inverse. Literal communism is on the rise.
Oh, but I was like,
Profit off of it.
yeah.
Well, they have the ones now where you can bet on like what tie is Trump going to wear and stuff. They should just throw that in there. It's how communist will America? Will there be bread? How many people in the bread lines?
Tim's just pointing, spiking the football on what pigs capitalists are, right? Yeah. They want to make money off of communism.
The best skit I saw the other day, it was like 2 guys. It says like betting whether the person who answers the gambling addiction hotline is a woman or not.
I saw that.
I was thinking of. You see this from Polymarket? I was actually thinking, like, what if I put $1 million into this right now? I'd win 30 grand for free. So Polymarket has a bet: will Jesus Christ return in 2025? With a 3% chance, meaning for every dollar you bet no, you can win $2.06. I'm sorry, for every $100 you can win $2. That's free money. I'm not trying to be a dick or disrespectful, but I honestly believe even Christians are going to tell you Jesus Christ is not going to return. That's why it's at a 3% chance. But that means some people are betting it is. And so there's money to be made in betting no.
I feel like as soon as you bet on Christ coming back, he's definitely not coming back because he said that no one will know when he's coming back.
So technically, this is proof that it can't happen. At least one person will be saying yes.
It's actually preventing him from coming back.
So it's Polymarket is the Antichrist.
Never mind, can God make a rock too big that he can't lift? Yeah. Can God come back? Can Christ come back as long as there's someone betting against him on Polymarket?
I also liked on the tracker how April, it's like that's when Liberation Day was. All the tariffs are going on, and these guys are like, just Jesus, please come back. I can't do this anymore.
No, but I don't think that Christ is
bet
come back in 2025.
If you say no for $100, you will get $102.
Oh. And if you're wrong, then it's not a big deal.
You put in 100 grand, you're going to get $1,803. You put in $1 million, that's $6 grand for free. Seems like they're really ripping you off on the percentage, though.
You should shoot a message to Seamus and see what he says. Ask him where you should put your money.
And it's a win-win. If you win, you make money. If you lose, well, Jesus.
I just think
right.
You should ask the Pope for an insider trading tip.
It's like when you were talking about going back in time earlier, and there's this skit I was watching where a guy's like, he gets sent back in time 20 years and he wants to win a bunch of money, but he can't remember who won the World Series.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like if I got transported back and I had my phone and they'd be like, oh, well, tell us how you make it. I'd be like, I can tell you what Amazon's price might be. And they're like, dude, no. How do you make a car? I'm like,
that's why I think you guys should look up the basics of radio. Yeah, because if you had like just the simplest understanding of, sending a signal over wire or whatever, you could go back in time and tell someone how to do it. I need copper, and then we gotta heat it up, we gotta thin it out, figure it out, and we gotta wrap it in insulator, and then or we could start simple. We can take an acid, you put some metal in it in a clay pot, do electrolysis like the Egyptians were doing. Those clay batteries,
I wonder how well those actually worked.
For electrolysis, I get like electroplating. I guess it did the job. I don't know.
I can only offer him Super Bowl champion. Sorry, guys. Like, what's the Super Bowl?
But again, because we brought this up earlier, the simple knowledge of the electromagnetic spectrum would revolutionize technology. The moment you like, if you went to 500 years ago and started telling everybody about germs, medicine would be hundreds of years more advanced. Simply just knowing that they exist. Then you put 100 people on it and they'll start working on it. You know what's the craziest thing? If somebody just told these guys in the Civil War, that moonshine you've been drinking, dump it on the wound, then some soap, and you don't got to cut the guy's leg off. Instead, they're like, give him the whiskey. We're cutting his leg off. It's like, no, pour the whiskey on the leg.
That's a stunning thought.
Or you show them the pride flag and they just all say, this isn't worth it. Just end it all.
Right. The future is.
Or honey. Yeah. I mean, I guess, I was watching, was it 1893 or what's that show, Brett? You know every show.
1883.
See, he knows everything.
Know every show.
She gets shot with the arrow, and they're like, what did it say? The arrow had feces on it, so you're dead?
Oh, that's rough.
You can't do anything about that because it's in your body. And then they're like, if we pull the arrow out, she's septic, because the Native Americans would dip the arrows in feces so that when you got hit with it, you were dead from the infection.
Wow.
Yeah. Nowadays, we have antibiotics.
Actually, did that. I was just rewatching first season of Arrow where Deadshot shooting people with like curare-laced bullets. So that's like not even the bullet that kills you; it's the poison. It's like,
yeah. Damn. All right, we're gonna go to your chats, my friends. So smash the like button and share the show with literally everyone you know. I mean, next time you go to church, just walk around asking people, "Do you watch Timcast IRL?" and make friends.
And take their bets on whether they think Jesus is coming back in 2025.
Yeah. And we're going to have that uncensored call-in show coming up at rumble.com/TimcastIRL. You don't want to miss it. But for now, we'll grab your chats and see what y'all have to say in this here conversation. We got Barry N. McGrowan says, Tim, what was the most effective deterrent for Iran's nuclear ambitions? Trump dropping bombs or Obama dropping pallets of cash? It would appear that Trump dropping bombs was. I don't know. Pallets of cash.
You can't pay people to like you.
Right.
What if you put the bombs in the pallets of cash?
And then when they went for the money, they exploded.
Drop it from high enough and it can probably do some damage.
And then the only way to get the money out was to not actually try to get it, because the second mouse gets the cheese.
Did you hear that? I heard this yesterday from somebody. Obama had to actually send them euros because they didn't want, this is insane.
Oh, really?
They didn't want to take dollars from the great Satan. So the plane that flew the cash over was actually in euros. So it's like, we didn't kowtow enough sending you money. We're going to agree to send you European money. Unbelievable.
Should have sent the Zimbabwean dollars and just covered Tehran.
We should have sent Monopoly money.
We should have sent them
Here you
counterfeit
go.
money.
Tehran's just covered in.
Here's some Monopoly money. Have a buy Boardwalk.
They did that gag though in the underrated movie Surf Ninjas, where a guy, Rob Schneider's character, goes, "There's dynamite here." He goes, "Throw it at him," and he hits him in the head with a stick of dynamite rather than lighting it.
All right. Rue Actual says voting doesn't work. A vast majority of Colorado hates the blue politics, but elections don't matter. Mail-in ballots and NGO paying people to live here and vote will always win. I disagree. Trump won. And now Trump has the ability to take the federal government and go in and actually make some significant changes. Blind Snake says the government took over a brothel in Nevada and a liquor store in Alaska. The two things that should sell themselves, the government ran them both into the ground.
Amazing.
I think Virginia, doesn't Virginia have government-run liquor stores called ABCs?
Yeah.
Is that Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, California lost money on weed somehow.
That's ridiculous.
Like,
That's a scam.
Yeah.
It's like when movies are like, we made $1 billion movie, but we lost money.
Well, that's the Hollywood funny money accounting.
Yep.
That's the other reason you can't trust Zohran. His mom is a movie producer.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the real reason.
All right.
You can't. Yeah.
Boy.
I do
Getting
think
worse.
She'll just recast
people were like,
him.
did you know that he was a rapper and his mom directed his music videos? And I was like, that sounds lovely. Do you think that's going to endear you to people to insult someone because they love their mom and they worked on music together? That is not the insult you think it is. Yeah, don't play those stupid games. Like going after Fetterman for wearing the hoodie, I'm like, that's a mistake. Donald Trump, well done steak with ketchup. The media took the bait. Trump, I love this story. In Trump's first term, there was a news story. You remember this one? Donald Trump ordered a steak well done with ketchup.
Yep.
And then the media started insulting him and making fun of him, saying, what is he doing? Meanwhile, there were a bunch of middle-class, lower-class Americans with their Walmart $2 steaks, well done with ketchup, cutting it and then dipping it in ketchup and eating it and going, excuse me? Is there something wrong with the way I live? Trump knew what he was doing.
The SoundCloud rapper demographic is definitely in Zoran's counter to that.
Plus, the Trump well done steak is a power move at the negotiating table. You're just rocking the whole table.
And chewing through the tough, chewy meat.
You're like, call me daddy, by the way.
Well done.
There was a bunch of white liberals secretly trying steak with ketchup for the first time. I wonder, does that work?
It is true, however, that Vivek singing Eminem should have ended his political career before it ever started.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, he doesn't.
But now they're going after Zohran, being like he did rap videos and his mom directed them. And the right starts, if the right picks that up, the left is going to use that as their straw man and say the only attack, they're going to say, and the only thing they have on him is that they're mad that his mom helped him make music. What's wrong with these people?
It's like saying, it's like Obama. Oh, his only scandal was that he wore a tan suit.
Oh, that drives me nuts.
That and killing that kid, but you know.
Well, they don't know about that. Also, to be fair, his mom's like an actual famous producer, so it's like she's actually successful. It's not like she wasn't good at her job.
Let's go. Okinawa dude says, shout out to my new baby boy Larson. Third kid, but first boy. We are past replacement rate. Love you, fam. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Great to hear.
Tell him 3 down, 10 to go.
AEI owned you says, Tim, you say I'm not willing to do what Democrats do. I am and worse. I'm to the right of Genghis Khan. I'm self-restrained. I prefer civil society. What say you? You misunderstand. Let me give you an example. Donald Trump could have won his re-election campaign very, very easily with this one simple move. This one simple move would have won Donald Trump his election in 2020. When the Summer of Love rioters went to the White House and threw a firebomb on the grounds and set fire to St. John's Church, if Donald Trump actually wanted to play the way Democrats do, he would have instructed law enforcement to pull back. He would have told Bill Barr, shut your mouth, retreat. We're going in the bunker and we're locking the doors, keep men posted outside of it, and we are pulling back all law enforcement, National Guard or otherwise. Then the far left would have torn down the barricades, tore down the fencing, razed St. John's Church, a historic church used by founding fathers, to the ground. And Donald Trump would have emerged the next day and said, every day when I look to the media with the story of the death of George Floyd, they told me it was peace. They told me it was peace. I begged my law enforcement, we cannot risk injuring peaceful protesters who have a real grievance. And I'm sorry, but I made a mistake. These people were violent terrorists who burned down St. John's Church and raided the White House. This insurrection cannot stand. So I am launching the M29 committee to hunt down all of the far left. And instead of J6, you would have had M29. And come the election, the entire narrative would have been the left is dangerous. And they ransacked and burned down, his historic landmarks. Instead, what did Trump do? He did the forward-facing, we call this the samurai approach. He said, stop the criminals. And so the next day, the narrative was Trump mercilessly beats innocent, peaceful protesters. Then on J6, what did Nancy Pelosi do? Intentionally withheld National Guard and law enforcement from the Capitol so that the people who are there and riled up would storm in and they can go, oh, geez, we're being attacked by Trump's insurrection. Democrats are willing to do things like that. The right is not willing to do things like that.
They play 4D chess or 5D chess.
Well, they're just evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the reason I call it the samurai is the samurai, and this is probably to a degree apocryphal, but we're known for their code of honor, Bushido, and you only draw the blade when it is to take blood, and and so if you're dishonored, you commit seppuku. And the legend is, ninja would wear all black and do whatever they wanted. Well, they wouldn't really wear all black. Ninja would dress like whoever they needed to dress like to fit in, and then sneak up and kill someone with literally no honor. So while the samurai were staying at the front gate guarding their feudal lord, the ninja was dressed like a maiden carrying flowers who was led into the castle and then drops the flowers holding a knife, stabs the emperor, jumps out the window, and runs away while dropping, what is it called? Makibishi? Is that what is it called?
What they're called, but
Japanese caltrops.
Yeah.
And they were serrated with poison in them. And the samurai were flabbergasted. How could someone be so dishonorable? That's what Republicans always do. They say, we're going to play a fair game, no hitting below the belt, and Democrats just punch them in the groin nonstop over and over again. And they're going, stop, come on, you're breaking the rules. And they won't do anything about it.
Even worse than the media makes them out to be the bad guys. So even in their honor, they're portrayed as evil.
Well, there's that bit, I think it was John Doyle. He was like, everyone's going to be facing the wall and they're going to be like, man, imagine if we did this.
Yep. At least the samurai had real wasabi, Tim.
They did.
They did.
All right, we got Wyatt Kaldenberg. He says, Zohran supports the third intifada. What is that, and what are the first two intifadas? Is that a government or a revolution? NYC is becoming London. He also was asked about globalizing the intifada, to which he said that it means different things to different people, and that they're basically just calling for, what did he say, like peace?
Postmodern nonsense.
Right.
So what is this? What does this intifada?
So when he's talking about globalizing the intifada, what he's talking about is, well, primarily killing Jews.
Doesn't it mean killing all the Jews, basically?
Yeah, killing all the Jews. And I think it goes back to the concept of jihad. You guys have all heard this word jihad, right? What jihad basically means is you do any bad... think about it in this world. In a world where a vice is a virtue, if you can wrap your head around that, it means anything you do to stick it to a Jew is a virtue. So if you're in a bus... Let's say in in Israel, and you rip you tear the fabric on the bus, that's jihad. I've got friends who they've had houses built and they find the plumbing's not working, and they go into the pipes and there's pebbles in there. That's jihad. Or you strap something to a vest and you blow yourself up. The point is, there's nothing peaceful about it whatsoever. So he's basically packaging violence, like you just said, Tim, when you were talking about. How the left tries to do all these horrible things, and that now what's this? Okay, choose a color as long as opponent has cards. Am I reading the right side? Yeah. Long as the opponent has cards of color in play, all white creatures. Is this for real? Gain +2/+1. Jihad must be discarded immediately if at any time opponent has no cards of this color or play. What is this from?
What's the card called?
Magic.
No,
the card's called Jihad.
Indeed. That is a banned Magic the Gathering card because it's racist.
Really?
Yeah. I've got the whole racist collection right behind me on every episode.
It's accurate. That's and so for him. Oh, I didn't get it all the way back to you.
Let me explain so this is from
like repackaging mass murder.
This is from 1994. It's a Magic the Gathering card. It's called Jihad. It's from the Arabian Nights expansion, which was the second expansion. I'm sorry, the first expansion.
Yeah.
The second set. It says, choose a color. As long as opponent has cards of this color in play, all white creatures gain +2/+1. The implication and why they banned it is that they're saying if you can choose a color by which for those who don't know Magic, there's five colors in the Magic wheel, representing black magic, white magic, green magic. So the general concept behind the theme of the card is choose a color you don't like. Your creatures are stronger so long as that's the color they have. Meaning,
wow,
they will deal more damage and they'll be harder to kill.
Wow. He's also said things like he wants to make, and this is Jews, he wants to make Zionists so uncomfortable that they leave New York City, which I'm not even sure have to do anything just kill the bodegas and you take care of that.
So there's a few things to break down in this. We've talked about it quite a bit, but I've asked many individuals who are critical of Israel, what would happen if Israel said, we are going to remove all restrictions from Gaza and allow all of the Palestinians free access, go wherever you please, live wherever you want throughout all of Israel? What would happen? What do you think would happen?
They'd kill everybody that they could.
Like we saw with October 7th. And the funny thing is, the people who are very critical of Israel would say to me, well, I'm like, no, come on. Literally everybody knows. You don't have to be in favor of what Israel is doing in Gaza right now to recognize that there is a war. And that if you remove the barriers and these people can freely move about wherever they want, they're talking about returning to what they see as their ancestral homeland. And we saw what happens on October 7th. When they go to those places, they start killing people. I think it's recognized by most people. Now, with that being said, some people may argue they wouldn't, but I don't know how that makes sense.
Well, let me give you the best possible piece of physical evidence that there could be. If you go into Judea and Samaria, where I am, and you go to a Jewish town, okay, it's got barbed wire, It's got armed guards. It's got cameras. It's got drones flying all over the place. Okay. You go across the way, go a couple hundred yards. I can see Bethlehem from where I am. Go a couple hundred yards. Oh, another signature thing. The houses are all close together, like right packed in next to each other. And everybody's got a safe room where they can go to escape if there's a missile or there's violence, October 7th thing. You go right across the street to the other towns, no fence, no guards, nothing.
But the reason I brought this point up is that most people, whether they want to or not, recognize, there's a war going on. Okay, so when these people marching say from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, what does that mean if you, in the nicest interpretation for what they're saying? How would you describe that?
Kill everybody that's...
No, the nicest interpretation that they would argue, not you would argue.
The nicest interpretation? Gosh. That everybody would leave from the river to the sea? I don't know.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. When you ask one of these pro-Palestinian protesters saying that the state of Palestine will be restored, and that the people of the West Bank and Gaza will be free to have access to their ancestral homelands. And then I ask the follow-up question. If Israel took down the barriers at Gaza right now and said all of the people here are free to move about, what would happen? Everybody hems and haws with, it'd be a massacre. And it's not just that they would go massacre a bunch of Jews; they'd all be fighting. Everybody would be fighting.
Right.
It'd be
because there is actually fighting within the But I mean, like there's civil, because what people don't know is within like the PA controlled areas, people are divided by clans and tribes. So there's fighting in between those clans and tribes.
But and again, my point is not meant to be pro-Israel or anti-Israel or pro-Gaza or anti. It's literally a reality of there is a war going on. And when you chant from the river to the sea, and your argument literally just means the Palestinians will be free to return to the land that you believe they came from before. Whatever your argument is, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Right.
Okay, you're saying there will be mass bloodshed, conflict, massacres. Because if you thought October 7th was bad, have your from the river to the sea all open and whatever, and then get your bloodshed and your massacre.
Well, I think, Tim, that's the theme of this entire episode. Everything we've talked about is reality versus fiction. Like it's there was a great Christian theologian called Ravi Zacharias, and he had this argument that you could say that you could be standing on a road and somebody could say, "Hey, Tim, get off the road, get onto the sidewalk. There's a bus coming." And you could say, "I'm sorry, I live in a world where there's no buses. I don't believe in buses. What's going to happen? You're going to get hit by the bus." And I think that's the point we're all making, is that, again, back to the mayor of New York, these people live in a world that doesn't exist. It's what Ronald Reagan said. I love this quote. He said, "It's not that liberals are ignorant. It's that they know so much that isn't so."
Yeah. Let me read this one. Jimmy says, this is the proof the Constitution is no longer in effect. Because it doesn't allow socialism. We have private property rights. The government can't put a cap on rent. We have First, Second, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments. I actually think rent stabilization and rent control should be challenged under the Third Amendment. One of the interpretations of the Third Amendment, which most people don't cite, the literal text is that the government can't quarter, soldiers in your home. But the interpretation went beyond that to say it's as the First Amendment has been reinterpreted over the past 100 years to literally mean that communists can say whatever they want or you can blaspheme, which was not the law. You couldn't. The Third Amendment basically means the government has no authority over your home. And so I would argue this. If the government is asserting you are only allowed to rent your property out for a certain amount of money, that violates the Third Amendment.
Does, yeah.
Because they're creating a restriction. It's codified in law, and now they can use it as they see fit, especially if government employees are renting those properties. Just by virtue of the fact that people do work for the government to a large amount, and they've created a market opportunity for their employees, they're in violation of the Third Amendment.
You're violating property rights, you're saying. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying we can make this argument that the government has, how many people work for the government in New York City? Let's find out. It's a lot, right?
Oh, boy. Let's look it up.
How many people work for the NYC government?
Boy, it's going to be big.
Right. Now, the argument always was that the federal constitution was only for federal law, not for state law, but that's changed. 300,000 people. So what does the government do? In order to make sure they don't have to pay too much to these employees, they need to make sure that there's affordable housing that government employees who get low pay can actually afford.
Right.
That violates the Third Amendment. Even creating the market opportunity, so long as they have government employees that live in the city, stabilizing rent violates the Third Amendment.
Yep.
So let's sue. There you go.
Let's do it.
Indeed.
Somebody call ADF.
There you go. All right. Stevie Vivi says, do not talk so bad about Buffalo Wild Wings. When I worked there, it was just chicken wings in hot beef tallow, no flour. I wish, man. I don't know what they're doing now, but I always get traditional wings. It's the best. I eat chicken wings all the time.
Well, now you can't even get out of there under $30. It's brutal.
Also, flats.
Flats?
Flats are better than the drums.
You know, I like them both.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the chicken on them is good, but flats are easy to eat.
Yeah, you can. It just peels right off, and then you just dip it like a nugget.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, they both have their pros and cons.
They're both delicious.
Yeah, they're both delicious. And when you go to Buffalo Wild Wings, you can actually order flats or drums.
What are flats?
So you know how there's the drumstick chicken wings, and then there's the ones that are it's 2 bones.
Yeah,
that's
a flat.
the flat.
It's called a flat.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you go there, you can be like, I want 12 traditional wings, flats only, and they'll go, okay. And then they come out, and it's only. And then what you do is you break the bone in half, and then you can peel the meat right off the bone, and then you basically have a chicken nugget. Dip it right in. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Drumsticks, you can't do that, but you can grab by the base. You see, that's the pros and cons. All right, everybody, we're going to go to that uncensored call-in show. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Maybe you have an estranged child who is in college you haven't spoken to in a long time. Reach out to them and say, son, I need you to hear this. Watch Timcast IRL Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., plus the uncensored show at rumble.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m., where you can call in by joining timcast.com and going to join us, getting in the Discord server, and you too can call. And he's going to say, what are you calling me about? You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Matthew, do you want to shout anything out?
Well, I just want to say they're calling to try to get a vote for the New York mayor. Isn't that what they're trying to do?
Who is?
The people you're talking about, this fictitious college student we're talking about.
Well, that's why estranged dad or
daddy if
right.
we're talking about that. Yeah.
Yep. Maybe you're a young liberal college woman who hasn't spoken to your actual daddy.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Call him and say, Dad, are you watching Timcast IRL?
Call your father.
What do you want to shout out?
Okay. Well, what are the shout out rules on this show?
You got a website. You got a
okay
social media page.
Yeah, sure. You can check me out at
food you like.
Oh, of course. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Pastrami on rye with
Yes.
pastrami on rye with a Dr. Brown's Diet Cherry Cola and fries. That's from 2nd Avenue Deli. Tim, if you ever just say Faraci, you did something right. That's all I need. I don't need money. I just need that to show up via Good Belly. You can check out my podcast, Peace and Power Israel, where we talk about all these kinds of issues in a lot more in depth, and our website Gideon300.com. And I bet you know the Bible story in Gideon 300. I'm guessing. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm reading that off you since you upped my John Adams game.
It's like VBS right now.
Huh?
It's like VBS.
So much.
Right on.
So much.
Guys, if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram and on X at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. So I'm off X for the week, at least until next week. But what you should do is watch Pop Culture Crisis. We are live Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is noon Pacific. And what I want you to do is to go share that out with all your friends and your family and the people that you hate, and then argue with them in the comments section to increase our engagement.
Yes.
Thanks.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RealTapeBrown. And if you're an estranged child that doesn't want to make up with his father, you can follow me. It's a safe space.
Well, that was weird. I'm Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can check us out on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Deezer, Spotify, and YouTube. And don't forget, the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all over at rumble.com/TimcastIRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.